Chapter 55-34. Moreover, the arrow that pierced Sikong Fuling earlier had more or less pierced this guy's body. Now that the spiritual energy in his body was intertwining and repelling each other, he probably wouldn't live for long. Taking a step back, even if he survived, he would probably be a powerless cripple. Proper business was more important, so there was no need to pursue a cornered enemy. Mo Lien threw Duan Yu a look before turning around to leave, dragging him along with him. Duan Yu couldn't resist knitting his brows. In the end, Mo Lien was still merciful towards the Long family. The tunnel is completely cleared. Eighth young Master Qi jogged over with a smile, dust flying from his body. He looked as if a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Okay, let's set off now. Mo Lien also didn't want to wait a moment longer. Who knew how his wife was doing inside right now? Bring some people in first. Duan Yu quickly said, I'll clean up here and bring up the rear. Move faster. Mo Lien glanced at him from the corner of her eyes before turning to look at Mu Xingqian, who had been standing there in a daze for a long time. She sighed softly. I'll leave eldest brother to you. I know. Stop blabbering and scram, Duan Yu urged before instructing 8th Qi to lead Mo Lien to the tunnel entrance. He then led another group and called for Mu Xingqian to join them. Mu Xingqian recovered his wits, and a faint wry smile tugged at his lips. Miss Sikong seriously, she didn't even look back when she left. She just pounced on him without any hesitation and didn't even leave a single word in the end. So when she said she didn't have a choice, she had already made her choice. If she wasn't standing on the opposite side, this loyal and righteous girl might have what? Mu Xingqian shook his head in self-mockery. He suddenly raised his hand and caught something at lightning speed. He couldn't help but be startled. Seeing Duan Yu walking over, Mu Xingqian quickly withdrew that thing into his inner world and turned to nod at Duan Yu. Let's go. The Emperor of Zhangzhou was truly incomparably ruthless. The scene of thousands of arrows shooting in unison just now was still deeply etched in his memory. This Supreme Emperor did not have the slightest bit of mercy towards people. He waved his hand and gave the order to shoot Long Yun to death with arrows. What's wrong with you? Duan Yu indifferently swept a glance at Mu Xingqian. No, nothing. Mu Xingqian lifted his feet slightly and hurriedly followed. An hour later, with 8th young Sir Qi's group leading the way, Mo Lien led the elites from the 3 provinces through the already opened underground passageway and finally entered the Qing Province Kingdom City District. The inner city is just ahead, said 8th young Master Qi. Their movements were extremely fast. Based on their calculations, it was estimated that they would be able to leave the passage in another 2 hours and directly enter the inner city of the Qingzhou Kingdom's capital. Be careful. Hui Feng suddenly flicked out a dagger. After a ding, the muffled roar of the corpse puppet could be heard from the tunnel. The passageway was narrow and only allowed one person to pass. Suddenly, a large group of corpse puppets came from the front. Although it wasn't too dangerous for them. However, clearing the path was indeed a waste of time. Where's Duan Yu? Mo Lien knitted her brows. Why hadn't he come down yet after dilly-dallying for so long? Just when she needed this guy to throw out concealed weapons, he disappeared without a trace. At the same time, Duan Yu stealthily chased after the 2 injured heavenly birds with Chestnut. His Chestnut wasn't exaggerating. He said that the 2 heavenly birds couldn't make it, and they really couldn't make it. Before them was a murky stream. Chapter 55-35. It was an extremely inconspicuous stream on an abandoned slope belonging to the Qingzhou Kingdom. The 2 heavenly birds were heavily injured in the battle earlier. At this time, they were lying by the stream on the verge of death, unable to even move their claws. And not far from them, there was a person sprawled on the ground. His light purple outer robe was completely soaked by the stream. That person's entire face was in the water, and his breathing was weak and lifeless. Duan Yu lightly stepped on the wet grass and took several steps forward. Tilting his head, this guy's left hand, which was behind his back, suddenly conjured a silvery white streak of light. Without waiting for an explanation, he threw it at the figure sprawled in the stream. Bam! The attack missed. The originally motionless man abruptly flipped in the air and clutched his chest as he coughed heavily. His handsome face was already pale as he stood by the stream. Duan Yu suddenly smiled. His smile was resplendent and bright, and his pair of peach blossom eyes blinked, pure yet not bewitching. I knew it. A scourge lives on for 10,000 years. You won't die so easily. Long Yun coughed heavily, his eyes filled with mockery. You. Duan Yu wagged a finger at him. I don't need you to speak right now. Long Yun knew that he was doomed today, so he silently took a step back and looked at the other party warily. However, at this moment, the slender and delicate figure in front of him suddenly disappeared in front of him. Long Yun's pupils contracted, and he abruptly turned around to look. In a split second, a long sword with rippling silver flames abruptly stabbed into his heart the moment he turned around. It was so precise that it was impossible to resist. Death came so suddenly. He held the long sword condensed from the Devil Emperor's fire in one hand, and blood flowed from his fingers along the sword's hilt, dripping down inch by inch. Duan Yu looked indifferently at the person before him. The other party's painful and contorted expression made him as calm as ever. Why? What right, why? This was what young Master Long wanted to ask. Was this person crazy? They minded their own business, and at most, they just had different standpoints. Was there a need to chase him from 1,000 miles away to kill him? At the very least, the person he had always wanted to kill was Mo Lien. It was Mo Lien. What was wrong with this guy? What did he do to provoke him? Mo Lien had told him not to pursue a cornered enemy and let him leave. However, this person agreed on the surface and turned around to kill him. He was really sick. Duan Yu blinked and abruptly released his grip, allowing Long Yun to be stabbed in the chest and kneel on the ground like a pile of mud. The noble, elegant, and graceful emperor of Tsang province took out a clean handkerchief and carefully wiped his hands. He coldly glanced at Long Yun, who was curled up on the ground and not moving at all. You shouldn't have wanted to kill him. You shouldn't have taken out the fire Qilin Fanged snake's gallbladder and tried to take him down with you. Long Yun vaguely heard these words, and for a moment, his expression was a little startled and confused. Tsang Prefecture's emperor this is. What kind of special feelings were these? Could it be that, from the beginning to the end, the emperor of Tsangzhou loved the crown prince of the divine land? Liking his cousin was just a gargantuan pretense that he used to hide things, right? Even before he died, Long Yun felt that he was talking nonsense. He collapsed and did not hear the Tsang Prefecture's emperor's muttering. If you kill him, then what about Jojo? Jojo will cry, you don't like that Death Lotus, so it's fine if you beat him up, but how can you kill him? Chapter 55-36. I definitely won't let anyone hurt Qiao Qiao. Even if it's you, my cousin, I won't let you. Long Yun didn't hear Duan Yu's muttering. At this point, Long Yun had actually completely lost his 5 senses. He couldn't hear, see, or touch anything. In a daze, a white, misty mist seemed to appear in front of his eyes. A young lady dressed in white and with a jade face came out of the mist and walked towards him expressionlessly. Long Yun raised his hand slightly, as if wanting to grab her hand. But in one breath, he suddenly relaxed. He slammed his raised hand heavily on the side of the stream, allowing the murky water to pass through his wrist. Duan Yu's figure abruptly disappeared, only leaving behind a cold sentence. Go and clean up the dragon clan of forgetfulness, especially that troublesome Ding Xian. Don't leave behind any clues. Since the dragon clan of forgetfulness had been silent for so many years, there was no need for them to rise again. The Moron clan of forgetfulness sounded like a pretty good candidate for leader. The air stirred slightly before returning to silence. After some time, a slender figure wrapped in a green headscarf hurriedly ran over from the gurgling stream. That person stumbled over, and when she saw the motionless corpse lying in the stream, tears rolled down her cheeks. Her entire body seemed to have lost some sort of strength, and she abruptly collapsed on the ground, splashing up a few drops of water. She hurriedly crawled over with her arms and bawled as she hugged Long Yun. "You little sweetheart, you finally can't run away anymore. Do you still remember that we met by a small stream back then, but you don't have any recollection of it afterward?" Back then, he suddenly popped out when she was bathing in the stream. Didn't they form an inexplicable ill-fated relationship? Unexpectedly, as the paragon of the demonic cult, the Lord of Forgetfulness, he actually died in an unknown mountain stream in the Qingzhou kingdom. Do you regret it, sweetheart? The Raksha princess burst into tears, and her tender and alluring face seemed to have aged several years. I already told you not to meddle in this matter, but you just wouldn't listen. Do you regret it now? Do you regret it? The Raksha princess cried mournfully for a while. He raised his head and looked at the horizon. The sunset was red and the sun was setting. She hunched her back and picked up the drenched man. Half dragging and half carrying him, she walked forward. He didn't know where he was going. It was as if there was no place for them to hide in the vast world. Duan Yu hurriedly led his men into the passageway and discovered that Mo Lien and the others were almost done cleaning up the zombies underground. Seeing that he had finally arrived, Mo Lien looked at him suspiciously. "Where did you go? There are many harpies up there. We can only come down after we clean them up." Mo Lien glanced at him. "There should be a place for corpses up ahead." Duan Yu silently took out the 9 Jade Heaven's thunder. Crown Prince Rong hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "Your Majesty, this passageway is narrow. If we use large firearms or hidden weapons, I'm afraid the passageway will collapse. Otherwise, the Crown Prince of the Divine Prefecture would have used it a long time ago." Duan Yu pondered for a moment before stuffing the Jade Heavenly Thunder into his pocket. Then quickly clean it up. Manual cleaning was quite tiring. After all, this passageway only allowed one person to pass through, so only 1 or 2 people at the front of the group were bitterly cleaning up the zombies that pounced over. Thankfully, Crown Prince Rong and the others would switch places with the Crown Prince from time to time to withstand a wave of zombie attacks. However, Mo Lien felt like she had nothing left to live for. Chapter 55-37. How long would it take to clear these waves of zombies? This speed was too slow. If only Jojo was here. He could toss these things into the realm of misfortune and let them perish on their own. There would be no need to clear them. "Let me do it." Duan Yu couldn't help but scoff when he saw this guy's bitter expression. Prince Emote silently retreated. As he watched Duan Yu finish off several zombies with a swing of his sword, he couldn't resist asking quietly, "Are you going to bang?" Duan Yu threw out a burst of Devil Emperor fire, and everyone heard a loud rumble. Everyone instantly perked up. "It seems like we've reached the end." It wasn't seems, they had indeed reached the end of the passageway. Thus, Mo Lien also put down the question he wanted to ask earlier and hastily followed the crowd in brandishing their swords, smashing down the wall in front of them. Light seeped in. Everyone was overjoyed and hurriedly rushed over. At this time, the zombies were more or less cleared out. Occasionally, a few would crawl out of the narrow passageway, but they would be hacked to death by the elites of the 3 provinces before they could reach them. Duanyu gestured to the two hidden guards at the front to have them go out first. Not long after, they heard a shout. "No problem, come out." Everyone hastily ran out in an orderly manner and lined up. They took a deep breath as they faced the setting sun and the red glow on the horizon. They finally came out. The inner city gate was right in front of them. As expected, boom, 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 boom. A strange sound was heard. Mo Lien and Duanyu's expressions both shifted. They leaped onto the city wall first and ran toward the inner city with a whoosh. The people behind them quickly followed and flew over the city wall with a whoosh, chasing after the two. As they ran, they discovered that the ramp in front of them seemed to be gradually becoming steeper. No, that wasn't right. The city in front of them was rising into the sky. The entire city was starting to soar. So as they ran along the city path, they felt their bodies slowly tilting backward. The path in front of them slanted into the sky bit by bit and gradually became steeper. Vassal Prince Rong and the others' expressions changed. However, they saw dozens of Transcendence Realm cultivators following the Crown Prince of the Divine Province and His Majesty of Tsang Province leaping up at the same time. Their figures abruptly disappeared into a thick fog. Two cold voices came from the sky. "Purge the entire Qingzhou city. Arrange for Huang He and Mr. Su to come here and distribute the antidote for the third stage. Let's see if those who haven't completely turned into zombies have a chance to recover." Yes. A thunderous roar resounded from below. Crown Prince Rong raised his head worriedly to take a look. Under the setting sun, the sky was completely covered by thick fog. The main city that had suddenly flown into the sky seemed to have completely disappeared. Arbor leaned against the window and looked down in surprise. After the rumbling sound, the whole house started to shake. She knew that the city had ascended. To make the entire inner city of the main city soar into the sky, it was truly a huge investment. He did not know how long Tianyun had been preparing for this. At present, the entire inner city was enveloped by the flying talisman array and multiple defensive arrays. It was indeed very difficult for Mo Lien, Duanyu, and the others to break in from the outside. The little stoic was pondering while leaning against the window with her chin in her hands when she suddenly heard a soft sound. When she turned around, she saw fifth young Master Qin standing below the windowsill with a ghastly pale face, looking at her in a daze. Chapter 55-38. You, why would you commit suicide? Walk right into a trap. After he came out of seclusion, a boy servant secretly came to report that the Crown Princess of the Divine Province was imprisoned here. He thought it was a fantasy story. How could such a shrewd person like the little stoic come here by herself? Without waiting for Arbor to speak, the fifth young master hastily flipped in through the window and grabbed her hand, saying impatiently, "Let's go quickly. While they're dealing with the patriarch in the forecourt, I'll send you out." Deal with the patriarch? Arbor thought he had been confused for a moment and looked at the fifth young master in astonishment. "Is it the one from your family? Patriarch Tianyun?" "Enrich, who's dealing with him?" "Second brother." Fifth Qin tightly grasped her wrist. "Don't say so much. Let's talk after we get out. You're a talisman practitioner, so you should be very clear about talisman formations. I'll send you to the center of the talisman formation. Find a chance to destroy the formation core and quickly escape." The little stoic's heart warmed slightly, and she looked up at this person. When this person first met her, his nose wasn't his nose and his eyes weren't his eyes. Moreover, although she had saved him several times, it wasn't out of bad intentions. One time, she saved him in passing for a mission, and the other time, someone else paid for it. Arbor pondered. "Can I go to the front to take a look?" "You want to go take a look?" Fifth young Master Qin was taken aback and quickly shook his head. It's too late. From the looks of it, even with Hall Master Lu helping the Patriarch, he doesn't seem to be second brother's match at all. They've turned against each other. Arbor blinked, unable to conceal his excitement. Oh my god, she hadn't even made a move yet someone else had already turned against each other. It was especially comical just thinking about it. Arbor hastily pulled fifth young Master Qin back. Where are the guards outside? I've temporarily knocked them out. I'll take you out first. Where's Duguling? Duguling, this bastard, had been standing guard outside the whole time. He's also in the forecourt. How could second brother not bring young Master Dugu and young Master Ouyang for such an important matter like encircling and annihilating the Patriarch? Arbor nodded excitedly. If that's the case, I'll be letting myself down if I don't take a look. Tian Yun, that dog-shit ancestor, had done so many things in his past and present life. Now that he was being hunted down by his descendants, it would be a pity if he didn't see such a satisfying thing. Fifth Qin hastily grabbed her. Jojo. Arbor glanced at him and pouted helplessly. Okay, let's go. If he didn't want to look, then so be it. The talisman array had just risen into the air, and it was good to find the array core. He had to find Mo Lien and the others in the array first. She suspected that Mo Lien and the others might have also ascended into the sky. However, there were layers upon layers of spirit arrays outside. If they didn't have two capable symbol masters among them, it wouldn't be easy for them to break in. As soon as the two of them left the courtyard, earth-shattering roars and curses could be heard from the front yard. Fifth young Master Qin glanced at her nervously and said in a low voice, Jojo, don't be so curious. Let's hurry and find the exit of the array core and send you out. Who was curious? Wasn't she just leaving the courtyard and finding the noise very interesting, so she couldn't resist taking a few glances behind her? Fifth young Master Qin led her through the corridors and courtyards before finally arriving at a remote courtyard. He pointed ahead. Quickly sense if there's talisman energy flowing here. It's barely discernible. This is a symbol master no, it seems to be the power of talismans. Arbor's eyes were slightly cold. This is a formation set up by a great symbol master. Hall Master Lu is very formidable. Be careful. Arbor frowned. Hall Master Lu. Who? Talisman Hall's Hall Master, Lu Fuxing. Fifth young Master Qin said without holding back. It turned out that mysterious Talisman Hall's Hall Master was called Lu Fuxing. Arbor nodded and glanced at fifth young Master. I'll be right back. Stay further away and protect yourself. Arbor flashed and entered the courtyard's talisman formation. At the same time, a middle-aged man who was frowning and listening to young Master Omega Kotoku's words in the front yard suddenly had a change in expression. Someone entered the formation. He hurriedly flashed and was already far away. Second young Master didn't stop him. Instead, he hurriedly left with him after leaving behind a sentence. Lock him up for now. Hearing second young Master's order, the group of Transcendence Realm cultivators led by Dugu Ling couldn't help but look at each other. Their gazes focused on the man who was meditating with his eyes closed and was bound by 17 to 18 spirit-binding chains. This person had a white face and no beard. He looked to be about 40 years old. His eyes were closed and his head was lowered. Even though he was covered in spirit-binding chains, he didn't panic at all. This person was their Qin Estate's Patriarch, Qin Heijin. Patriarch Black Gold. From the establishment of Heavenly Fate to its current state, Patriarch Black Gold had been behind every step of the way. The Qin Estate relied on pills to develop. Heavenly Fate relied on these corpse puppets and corpse poison medicinal liquid to develop. Patriarch Black Gold had always been the pride of their entire family. He was the core of the entire Qin estate. But now, Omega Kotoku felt that he didn't need this person anymore. He wanted to let Arbor know that he was the only one who treated her the most wholeheartedly. For her, he could betray his entire family. He could even throw away heavenly fate, which was such a powerful force that the Patriarch had created, just for her. He crazily wanted to start all over again and start all over again. He didn't want to care about anything else. Lu Fuxing discovered that someone had touched his talisman formation. Other than Arbor, there was no one else who could think of. He had always known about the existence of Arbor, a great talisman master. To be able to kill so many of Grandmaster Ye's outstanding disciples and make Grandmaster Ye have no choice but to sacrifice Luohi's life to deal with this woman, she was naturally very impressive. He originally wanted to leave her out for a while, but he didn't expect that second young master's sudden attack today would mess up all his plans. Lu Fuxing had always wanted to have a talisman duel with Arbor. For a young girl to be able to surpass Grandmaster Yi in the Tao of Talismans, it was really commendable. But that was the end of her journey. Lu Fuxing's figure suddenly landed in a remote courtyard. His gaze was like a torch as he stared at the empty space in front of him. Reveal talisman, reveal talisman, reveal talisman. Lu Fuxing expressionlessly flicked his sleeve, and several talismans were thrown out in front of him. However, the expected figure didn't appear. Instead, 4 or 5 attack talismans suddenly appeared in the air and forced him to retreat several steps. Lu Fuxing clenched his fists. What an outstanding little girl. She was actually able to force him to take a few steps back. In Lu Fuxing's hand, 3 rows of talismans appeared, and he suddenly shot them in front of him. The talisman power seemed to have swayed into a bottomless ocean. In an instant, it was completely absorbed by the emptiness in front of him. Young Master Omega Kotoku and his entourage rushed over. Seeing this scene, their eyes darkened. With a shout, Lu Fuxing suddenly flicked out hundreds of talismans again. This time, the talismans he flicked out were all god-level profound Yin talismans. As soon as the talismans appeared, ghostly wails and howls sounded all around, forcing eldest young Master Qin and his entourage to hastily retreat. Arbor's figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the profound Yin talisman array formed by the profound Yin talismans and stared expressionlessly at that person. This person should be the mysterious talisman hall master of the talisman array. Arbor glanced at him and was about to make a move. Suddenly, a sound pierced through the air. Arbor's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly threw out a talisman. She looked at the broken knife that seemed to have jumped out of a storage talisman. In fact, only she knew that this broken knife had been kept in her inner world all this time. Today, it suddenly became restless. The knife was instantly unsheathed. It was no longer as bright as before, and there was even a small hole on its blunt edge. Lu Fuxing looked at the short knife in a daze. Why is it with you? Lu Fuxing stared at Arbor with a complicated expression. Arbor stilled and suddenly remembered what fifth young master had told her. This mysterious talisman hall master was called Lu Fuxing. She had seen and touched the short knife her mother had left behind. The words Fuxing were engraved on it. Your knife. Arbor's expression also turned complicated. She sized up the middle-aged man and asked in an uncertain tone, You? For my mother. Lu Fuxing was agitated. He clenched his fists tightly and stared at Arbor with eyes that seemed to shatter ice shards in the night. You deserve to die. Lu Fuxing suddenly started attacking like a madman, repeatedly flinging the talismans and curses on his body at Xiao Mu. Lu Fuxing, are you crazy? Eldest young Master Qin couldn't help scolding and hurriedly threw a look at Gong Songfeng and the others. Gong Songfeng, Fan Meng, and the others hurried forward to stop him. However, once a Talisman Master's talisman array was activated, it would take some effort for outsiders to barge in. Young Master Omega Kotoku's expression was extremely cold as he abruptly turned to glare at fifth young master standing to the side. You brought her here. He abruptly struck out a palm at fifth young master. The mighty force gave eldest young master Chin a fright, and he hurriedly dodged to block it. After a bam, eldest young master received Shin Xian's palm. His expression changed slightly, and his body swayed uncontrollably. Eldest brother. Similarly startled, fifth young master hurriedly ran forward and reached out to support eldest young master Chin, who was retreating several steps. You want to take her and run? Young Master Omega Kotoku pressed on. Eldest young master hurriedly blocked him with a furious expression. Second brother, are you trying to kill your own brother? On the other side, Lu Fuxing, who was crazily attacking Arbor, had a ferocious expression on his face. Especially when he heard Arbor's mocking voice. You couldn't get my mother, so you're venting your vengeful heart on her daughter. Lu Fuxing, you're truly promising. Shut up. Lu Fuxing shouted angrily. What do you know? What do you know? Chu Yun and I were childhood sweethearts to begin with, and we've long been engaged for life. If it weren't for that so-called marriage alliance between clans, for that bullshit engagement, how could Chu Yun possibly betray the love between us for so many years? Oh, Arbor's voice became increasingly icy and merciless, revealing traces of chilliness. Because you love my mother, you hate me, this daughter's existence. Joining Tianyun and aiding the evildoer is your way of loving my mother. Making things difficult at every turn for the daughter she protected with her life and even killing her precious daughter is your way of loving someone. Ha 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 ha. Arbor sneered repeatedly. Lu Fuxing, hurry up and stop using your cheap love on my mother. You're not worthy. When everyone present heard the little stoic's chilly voice, they couldn't help but shiver all over. The little stoic was as frightening as ever when she insulted people. Arbor pushed out a powerful Mysticine talisman and coldly watched that talisman explode on Lu Fuxing's body, blasting him back several steps. Lu Fuxing, the whole master of talismans and spells, should have known her identity a long time ago. As Long Chuyun's daughter, Arbor and the whole world knew about it. However, Lu Fuxing was jealous of her identity, jealous that she was Long Chuyun's daughter, so he hid in Tianyun and made things difficult for her at every turn. That's right, the stairway talisman this person created greatly troubled her, and it also made her wary of this mysterious existence, the Hall of Talismans and Spells. This was one of Lu Fuxing's ways of loving her mother. To deal with her daughter, it would be best if her daughter died a horrible death and became Tianyun's puppet. Ha 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 ha. What an enormous joke. You're truly disgusting. Arbor's gaze chilled, and he casually threw out a soul-stealing talisman. Lu Fuxing's expression changed, and he instantly pulled a disciple in front of him to block. However, the talisman's remaining power exploded on his body, causing him to retreat several steps and spit out a large mouthful of blood. Go die. I'm your mother's true love. Lu Fuxing's expression changed as he looked at the several hundred soul-stealing talismans flying toward him in astonishment. That's right, this young lady in front of him was a pervert who used talismans. I even dared to kill my own father, so what kind of dog are you, let alone you, my mother's former lover? You dared to scheme against me. I thought you already knew that you would die. Die, die, die. Arbor's eyes were filled with an ominous glint. The talismans in her hand flew out, and the heavy talisman power merged into a ball and bombarded Lu Fuxing's body. Lu Fuxing collapsed to the ground on the spot. There was a large hole in his chest, and his intestines were about to spill out. Everyone stared at the little stoic, flabbergasted. At this time, young Master Omega Kotoku flew straight up and swiped his sword across Lu Fuxing's neck. He then flew in front of Arbor and grabbed her wrist. Lu Fuxing probably didn't expect that he would die here today, in Arbor's hands. He reached out to cover the bleeding wound on his neck, and he stared blankly at the sudden darkness of the night. It was as if he could see a man and woman sitting back to back under the eaves of the ivy-covered corridor. Fuxing, I want to go to the Divine Province's Mu family for a marriage alliance. I already promised my mother. Don't come looking for me again in the future. Lu Fuxing looked at the boundless sky unwillingly. He couldn't tell if it was loneliness, shame, or vexation. His hand tightly gripped that blunt knife. He was a bit regretful before Chu Yun left Wangchuan. They fought in a fit of pique. She slashed the knife on the table, and a small chip appeared on the blade. In the end, the two didn't say a word. He thought that there would be a chance to meet again, that they would meet again in the future. Who would have thought that Fuxing was really like a dream? That farewell at Wangchuan turned out to be forever. Now he was lying on the cold ground, looking up at the night sky. There were no stars, no moon, no wind, no rain. Just like when he gave her this Fuxing saber, he couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. I am determined to be a master refiner. Chu Yun, I'll give it to you. Then you have to work hard. This saber of yours is really not that good. Arbor was pulled back to Crane Garden by the silent second young master. Along the way, he was a little depressed and nervous. He stumbled and fell. When they returned to the garden, young Master Omega Kotoku waved his hand and set up a defensive shield to prevent outsiders from entering. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. He subconsciously felt that something was going to happen. As if he was about to come into contact with something real, he was both excited and nervous. No, it's a strange emotion. Young Master Omega Kotoku seemed to have been provoked. His eyes glowed green as he stared at her coldly. Is it disgusting to not get what you want? He pressed on, his voice sinister. Is it disgusting to not get what you want? Do you think that love that you can't get is cheap? Arbor pretended to be frightened and fell to the side of the bed. She hugged the gauze next to her and looked at him, trembling like a small animal. Little Tree Cho roared in her consciousness, Master, come in quickly. It felt that something was wrong, as if something big was about to happen. It's okay, Cho. He won't kill me. Arbor's eyes hid a strange emotion. This emotion came so suddenly and so quickly that even she didn't know what she was secretly hoping for. It was as if some strange memory suddenly flashed through her mind. It was so fast that she couldn't catch it. She couldn't catch anything, Little Chiao, look at me. Look at me and tell me. Should I die if I can't get what I want? His eyes were filled with a thick gloominess, like the prelude to a flash flood. His fingers gripped her left wrist tightly, and he coldly asked, Speak. Arbor's big round almond eyes were wide open. She stared at him coldly with a strange light in her eyes. Crack. The pain of her bones breaking suddenly attacked her brain. However, the strange thing was that her entire heart was much calmer than usual, much calmer and more peaceful. Master. Seeing that Feng Zhangqing and the others in the star domain were all about to rush out and beat up young Master Omega Kotoku, Arbor could still keep a clear head. She ordered Cho, I'm fine, Cho. Don't let any of them come out. I'm fine, Cho. Master Cho was so distressed that he almost couldn't speak. She hadn't cried, but Cho was already crying uncontrollably. Master, doesn't it hurt, Master? It hurts, of course it hurts. It hurts a lot. Arbor muttered to herself, but her eyes were brighter than ever. She softly said to Cho in her conscience, Didn't you take the bone forging pill? Didn't you want to forge your bones and be reborn? She knew that none of her little friends in the star domain would be willing to do such a thing to her. But now wasn't it just right? Her mind was clearer than usual, and her eyes were brighter. She stared at young Master Omega Kotoku like this. In her clear eyes, she could almost make Omega Kotoku see his own ugly shadow. "Why aren't you talking?" Young Master Omega Kotoku's eyes were full of malice. He ruthlessly broke another one of her hands. His warm fingers gently brushed her cheek. "Didn't you want to run? I'm guessing that if you can only lie down and do nothing, you won't be able to run anywhere." Arbor suddenly chuckled. Strangely, even she herself felt that her laughter at this moment was somewhat frightening. Why was she laughing so strangely? Her clear eyes stared fixedly at the man in front of her. Suddenly, the figure in the bright red wedding dress seemed to flash past her eyes. Yes, in her previous life, she was forced to marry Omega Kotoku. But on the day of the wedding, Brother Chin, the mournful cry rang in her ears. In front of Arbor's eyes, it was as if the memory fragments were being reorganized. She saw Chin Axion in a bright red dress, his eyes flashing with a faint green light, the sword dripping with blood in his hand piercing through Duanmu Chin's chest. That's right, it was like this. Sir Jojo finally remembered. That day was just like now. Chin Axion grabbed her shoulders, shook her back and forth, and asked her why she wanted to run and why she rejected him. Yes, he said, he had already given in step by step and begged her. Why couldn't she understand his heart? Yes, there was a deviation in her memory. The mermaid pearl in her body had once repaired her limbs in her previous life. So on the day of the wedding, she was indeed not carried in by someone. Instead, she was led in by someone. Chin Axion killed Duanmu Chin and cruelly broke her limbs again on the day of the wedding. He broke them. He wanted her to be unable to run away for all eternity. She could not run away for all eternity. And then? There was no then. Because on the night of the wedding, she suddenly self-destructed in front of him. Hee. Arbor stared at the man in front of her and suddenly broke into a smile. Ever since she was reborn, this unbearable past had been buried in the deepest part of her heart. She had never thought about it and never wanted to think about it. Was the truth actually like this? It turned out that his previous life was 10,000 times more tragic than he had imagined. Think about it, a young lady whose limbs were broken, who could only live like a little worm, who was in a constant state of anxiety, finally regained her mobility one day. The funny thing was, on a certain day, at a certain time, all her happiness was cut off. So in her previous life, she self-destructed in a fit of madness. Ha! No wonder she self-destructed. No one would be able to take it if they were crippled again after just a few days of standing up. Arbor looked at the man in front of her calmly and only smiled at him again. Her smile was strange and calm. She smiled so much that even she felt a little embarrassed. It was indeed a fateful entanglement. No wonder she found Second Chin's crazed gaze bewitching and familiar. As it turned out, she had experienced it once before. What was even more frightening was that the young Crown Prince Consort's limbs seemed to be limp and drooping. It looked like her hands and feet had been broken. Long Chang was also excited. Seeing Arbor's misfortune through the cage, he could not help but be overjoyed like Mu Xiaoxue. Mu Xiaoxue raised the whip. How could he stop her? He even egged her on. Hit her properly. If it were not for this bitch, the Long family would not have fallen to such a state. They directly escaped from the capital and came to a place like Tianyun. They could only do small chores. As the eldest young master of the Long family, he was not valued at all. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes flashed with malice. She also could not suppress her excitement and trembling. Great, this damned woman had finally fallen into her hands. Wasn't she arrogant and domineering? Didn't she say that she wanted to make Mu Xiaoxue suffer a fate worse than death? Now, let's see who will be the first to suffer a fate worse than death. Ha! Mu Xiaoxue waved the whip in her hand across the big iron cage. Paw! It caused a spark on the iron cage. She did not know if her eyesight was bad or if she was a good-for-nothing to begin with, but there was no strength in her hand at all. The gap in the iron cage was so large that the whip only hit the cage and did not touch Arbor at all. Long Chang couldn't help but panic when he saw this. He snatched the whip from Mu Xiaoxue's hand and shouted, "Let me do it." "What kind of eyesight do you have?" Long Chang's eyes flashed with excitement as he lashed the whip on the ground, causing sparks to fly. He shouted in an unclear voice, "Little slut, I'll let you have a taste of my flesh being torn apart." Paw! Ah! A scream pierced the clouds. Arbor expressionlessly looked at the three fools in front of him, his gaze unwavering. Qin Xian snatched the whip from Long Chang's hand and whipped him 3 times in a row, causing that fool to roll around and wail in pain. Long Min was so anxious that he knelt on the ground with a bang and repeatedly kowtowed to beg for mercy. "Eldest young master, spare my life. Eldest young master, please spare my life." Long Chang did not do it on purpose. "Eldest young master, eldest young master." Qin was about to explode from anger. Who was that? That was the little stoic Jojo. The little stoic who had always held her chin up proudly and strode forward without recognizing her own family, putting on an insufferably arrogant appearance. But now, she was in such a wretched state. Even 3 ignorant dogs could casually bully her. Unbelievable. Jojo. The 7 flowers in red and green called out to her mournfully and rushed to the front of the cage, sobbing and sobbing. Arbor sat there as motionless as a mountain, but his brows twitched imperceptibly. "Why are you crying? Jojo, you're too pitiful." Red Shirt, who had reached her hand into the cage, sobbed uncontrollably. Of course, it was just like how eldest young Master Qin's Lady Jojo had to be high-spirited. The Jojo in 7 Flowers' eyes had always been a little fellow who would act cute with a stoic face. She was a fellow who would hold your hand and seriously ask, "Is Spring House a restaurant?" When had they ever seen her in such a wretched state? Not only were her limbs broken, but she was even locked in a cage to pass her days miserably. Ouyang Su, who was standing on the side, didn't even know where to put her hands and feet. She only stammered, "Don't be like this. Second young master will be back soon. It's better to leave quickly." "Don't worry, the little stoic, she's fine." "Fine what?" Qin Xian couldn't resist retorting, "She's already like this, yet you say she's fine." He didn't know that this alchemist Ouyang was actually a quack who could lie through her teeth. Ouyang Su said weakly, "Little Miss Chiao seems to be in bad shape. Actually, when I took her pulse, I felt that her body is not bad." "Bullshit." Red Shirt couldn't resist spitting at him. She grabbed the little stoic's hand and turned to say to eldest young Master Qin, "Young master, let's smash this cage and take the little stoic away." Right, smash this cage." Bam! A gust of wind shot in from outside the door and swiftly knocked away Qin Xian's outstretched hand. Eldest young Master Qin turned around, and his chilly gaze landed on the newcomer. Dressed in red, the Omega Kotoku young master strode in and coldly stared at his elder brother. "Elder brother, I advise you to stop here." Qin Axayan said coldly, "If you insist on doing things your own way, I'm afraid we won't be able to continue being brothers." Eldest young Master Qin's eyes revealed a complicated expression. When he turned to look at the pitiful, little stoic in the cage, his brows ached, and tears were about to seep out of his eyes. The little stoic's appearance truly made one's heart ache and was extremely unbearable. Second brother, have you gone mad? What do you mean by this? This isn't loving her at all. This kind of love is truly frightening. How is this love? It's simply possessiveness. How could the Omega Kotoku young master listen to him? His gaze landed coldly on him. Eldest brother, please don't casually step into my courtyard in the future. Otherwise, my sword will probably run through your body. Chapter 55-39. This person's tone and intonation were both so cold that it didn't seem like he was joking at all. Eldest young Master Chin's heart sank to the bottom of the valley as he gazed at his second brother's icy gaze. Second brother had probably really gone mad. From the test just now, he could tell that his second brother seemed to be much stronger than him in terms of both physical strength and ability. After all, he had already undergone 3 mutations after taking the level 5 mutated pill. Even eldest young master couldn't estimate to what extent his current Omega Kotoku had mutated. Because ever since he took the pill, second young master had never revealed any abnormalities in front of others. He still looked the same as usual. But eldest young Master Chin knew that he was probably completely different. Madame Jojo was still sitting in the cage expressionlessly. Suddenly, she called out crisply, "Eat." These 2 words were so untimely that the group of people who had been secretly on guard and were probably about to attack all turned to look at her in bewilderment. Eldest young Master Chin also quickly turned to look at her, tears surging in the depths of his eyes. Hurry, hurry and prepare the meal. His Jojo was so pitiful. Jojo must be extremely hungry. Otherwise, with her proud personality, how could she possibly give in to the enemy and say something like this? Oh, Young-soo couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He practically dashed out of the door and hurriedly left the battlefield to find someone to prepare the meal. To be honest, he felt that his thoughts were rather comical. No matter who it was that had their limbs broken and thrown into a cage, it was impossible for the young Crown Prince Consort to be as calm and collected. Yes, this fellow was so calm that it made him so suspicious. He kept feeling that she was faking her broken limbs. After checking her pulse several times, he confirmed that not only were her limbs severely injured, even her veins and arteries showed signs of rupture. But she, was still thinking about eating at a time like this. Seeing eldest young master and the rest coming to rescue her, shouldn't her normal reaction be to hug eldest young master's leg and cry bitterly? The little crown princess reaction was simply completely out of the ordinary. If Arbor knew what he was thinking, he would definitely spit on his face. Who were they trying to trick? Didn't they know who Jojo was? How could she be tricked so easily? Of course, she was calm. She was the only one who knew that when her limbs were first broken, it did hurt a little. But right now, she didn't feel anything at all. Chocho had blocked her 5 senses and 6 senses. Not to mention pain, she wouldn't feel anything even if she was thrown into a cage and fiercely beaten up a few times. Moreover, she had secretly used her inner vision just now. The meridians in his body were in a mess. That was the effect of the bone-forging pill. If it was broken, how could it be reborn if it did not? Don't worry, she should be able to recover in a few hours. The key point was that after the bone-forging pill took effect, she didn't feel anything. She didn't know if it was because the pill itself was strange, or if it was because her body was strange. Or was it the effect of the shark pearl? Well, the mermaid pearl had been completely unsealed, and her body's bones and tendons were all broken. The mermaid pearl would naturally use all its strength to repair her. He wondered if there would be any conflict with the bone-forging pill. Jojo was a little suspicious. Forget it. Eating was the most important thing in the world. Let's talk about it after eating. The servants and maidservants that Yang-su had arranged to deliver food came in with a series of plates. Eldest young Sir Chin hastily took the bowl from one of the servants and planned to feed Jojo through the cage. "Jojo, what do you want to eat?" "How about some porridge?" Unexpectedly, Chin Axeon walked up quickly and snatched the porcelain bowl from his hand. She said coldly, "Elder brother, there's nothing else for you to do here. Please leave." The eldest young sir angrily stood up to glare at her. Unfortunately, this was Crane Garden, second brother's territory. The other party had already rudely chased him away, so the eldest young sir could do nothing about it. "I'm fine. You guys can leave." The little stoic sat upright and still, replying expressionlessly. Fan Mang had just taken a step when the eldest young sir blocked her with his hand. "Let's go." Even if they wanted to save Jojo, they had to come up with a foolproof plan first. If they couldn't do it openly, then they could only do it in secret. When young Sir Omega Kotoku saw those irrelevant people scram, his expression finally improved. Separated by that large orange-yellow iron cage, young Sir Omega Kotoku sat down in front of the little crown princess. He stirred the spoon in the bowl and gazed at her tenderly. "Xiao Qiao, were you obedient today?" Sir Jojo couldn't be bothered to respond to a pervert. If the other party was perverted, could she be more perverted than the other party? The answer was of course not. "Xiao Qiao." Young Sir Omega Kotoku lowered his head and gently blew on the spoon before placing a spoonful of warm porridge into the cage. "Did you know? I've always been looking forward to this day. To be able to sit here peacefully and chat with you." Arbor expressionlessly swallowed a mouthful of porridge. Seeing that she didn't refuse, the second young sir was even more delighted, and he reached out to stroke her head. Arbor gazed at him coldly. It had been 2 lifetimes, but when this person stroked her head, it still made her feel as if he was stroking a beloved pet. When he liked it, he would dote on it. When he didn't like it, he would kick it away and punish it ruthlessly. He was really cold and heartless. "Drag them up," young Sir Omega Kotoku smiled as he fed Xiao Qiao another mouthful of porridge. Soon, the 2 brothers, Tang Quan and Tang Li, grabbed one of Long Chang and Long Min's legs, pulled Mu Xiaoxua over by her hair, and threw her down heavily. The 3 of them fell to the ground in a mess, their bodies trembling from the pain, and their eyes trembling with fear. Sir Jojo was still expressionless. What kind of expression could she have? Tianyun always liked to bite each other, so how could she be kind enough to stop him? She could only watch as if she were watching a show. There would always be an end to a show, and everything would eventually come to an end. Long Chang was already so scared that he curled up into a ball. He repeatedly kowtowed and begged for mercy, crying out, spare me, second young sir. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't do it on purpose. It's all her fault, it's all her fault. It's this woman who instigated me to come and cause trouble. I was ordered by someone." Mu Xiaoxue was shocked and frightened when she heard this. She was furious and raised her hand to slap Long Chang. "What did you say? How dare you accuse me? If you didn't say that Arbor was locked up here, how would I know about these things with my status? It's all your fault, it's all your fault." Mu Xiaoxue climbed up a few steps and reached out to tear Long Chang apart. Long Chang hurriedly reached out and shook her off. He kowtowed to young Sir Omega Kotoku and cried, No, second young sir, it's all this woman who instigated me to come and cause trouble. She also snatched the whip from me. It's her, it's Mu Xiaoxue who wanted to whip the crown princess to death. Long Chang was hit in the chest by a force that shot at him. He rolled out and hit his head on the door sill. "You're wrong. From today onwards, she's no longer the crown princess. Bring the thing in, young Sir Omega Kotoku coldly shouted. A terrifying aura rose from his gloomy eyes. Long Chong was so scared that his whole body trembled. When he turned around and saw the thing that was being carried in, he was so scared that he peed his pants and fell to the ground, unable to move. 2 disciples of the Heavenly Fate sect carried in an iron plate that was about 3 meters long and 2 meters wide. The grooves at the bottom were filled with the power of thunder and fire. One could imagine what it would be like to be pushed onto the plate. Young Sir Omega Kotoku's eyes flashed with a trace of madness as he coldly pointed at the plate. Tang Quan and Tang Li opened their mouths and laughed. They suddenly lifted Long Chong upside down and threw him onto the iron plate. 4 invisible barriers rose around the iron plate, trapping Long Chong in a space of 3 meters and 2 meters. Ah, 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 ah. Long Chong let out a series of terrifying screams. He seemed to have gone crazy as he stepped on the iron plate with his bare feet. He kept twisting his body and bouncing up and down, only to be slapped down by the barrier above his head. His entire body was sealed in an invisible barrier. He slapped the barrier back and forth but couldn't get out. He could only bounce up and down, trying to avoid the thunder and fire. His feet made a series of crackling sounds. The pain of having his skin and bones flayed was unbearable. The thunder and fire penetrated his body through the soles of his feet and rampaged through his body, wantonly destroying his bones, blood, and veins. Long Chong took out his only defensive spiritual artifact. But how could it be a match for the holy thunder? Young Sir Omega Kotoku controlled the holy thunder. This kind of thunder and fire was not something that a mere spirit realm cultivator could withstand. Young Sir Omega Kotoku turned to look at Arbor. He smiled and fed her another bite. Jojo, is it fun? Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. Fun my ass. Arbor couldn't get used to seeing him like this. He turned to look at Mu Xiaoxue, who was trembling on the side and didn't dare to make a sound at all. He suddenly felt that he wasn't in the mood to take revenge on this quail-like woman. This woman had come so far that she was worse than a beggar on the street. What was the use of her joining the Heavenly Fate Society? Could she change her fate? Could she obtain a future? Nothing at all. If Mu Qingya's spirit was in heaven, she would definitely be angered to death again. Qin Xin, the Qin family has been a pervert for a long time, Arbor said coldly. Young Sir Omega Kotoku's eyes lit up. Ever since Jojo was caught and thrown into the cage, she had lost interest in talking. It was rare for her to be so happy today, so he had to calm down and talk to her more. Therefore, it must be Long Chong's act of dancing on the iron plate that pleased his Charl. Arbor glanced at him. Your family has been a pervert since your ancestor. I don't even need to guess to know that your ancestor is probably a good-for-nothing with no cultivation. Young Sir Omega Kotoku smiled gently at her and scooped another spoonful of porridge to her lips. Jojo, have a few more mouthfuls. Arbor continued to be expressionless. Mu Xiaoxue, do you know? Why is the Heavenly Fate Society called the Heavenly Fate Society? Mu Xiaoxue, who had been huddled in a corner, suddenly realized that Arbor had called her out. She couldn't help but tremble violently. Mu Xiaoxue hurriedly knelt down and prostrated herself humbly on the ground. She kowtowed to Arbor and said, No. She suddenly remembered what young Sir Omega Kotoku had said just now. Long Chong seemed to have angered the second young Sir because he called her the Crown Princess. Mu Xiaoxue hurriedly changed her words. Miss Chiao. Please let me go this once. I swear, I won't dare to cause trouble for you in the future. I can eat vegetarian and pray to Buddha every day. I can light a lamp for Miss Chiao and pray for you. I can do it every day, every night. Saying things like taking revenge on her, killing her, and making her fall into eternal hell was just her own wishful thinking. Although her mother didn't have much ability, she was very good at reading people. She and Arbor were worlds apart. There was no way she could take revenge on him. When she entered Tianyun, she thought that she would be able to emerge as a new force and obtain a different life. She didn't expect that a good-for-nothing would be a good-for-nothing no matter where she went. So what if she took the mutated liquid and mutated pills? Other than her body becoming weak and her limbs becoming stiff, she really didn't have any special abilities. Mu Xiaoxue was scared. She was completely scared. She was afraid that if she continued like this, one day she would become an ugly corpse without her own thoughts and memories. She would become a member of Tianyun's army of thousands of corpse puppets, and one of the lowest level ones. She was only fit to be sent to the front line as a pitiful cannon fodder. For the past few nights, she had been tossing and turning, thinking about what Mu Qingya said to her before she died. Xiaoxue, you can't beat her. When Mu Xiaoxue thought of this, she couldn't help but cry. Even though this woman's limbs were broken, her veins were broken, and she was locked in this cage. Yet, he still looked so lofty and insufferably arrogant. Indeed, she couldn't beat her. In this lifetime, even if she had a few more lifetimes, she still wouldn't be able to beat her. Miss Chiao, please let me go. The grudges between you and my mother have nothing to do with me. Mu Xiaoxue lay on the ground, not caring about her crying face. She couldn't stop crying and sobbing, as if she wanted to vent all the pain and hurt she had suffered in this lifetime. Arbor looked at her coldly. She didn't say to let her go, nor did she say to grant her wish. She only said indifferently, Mu Xiaoxue, your mother truly protected you too well. Naive, pure, and foolish. If Mu Qingya hadn't died, she could have continued to live comfortably. Unfortunately, Mu Qingya had died, and before she died, she was angered to the point of vomiting blood by Mu Xiaoxue. Let me tell you, Arbor said coldly. The reason Tianyun is called Tianyun. That's because their Qin family's ancestors, were sick. They wanted to follow Tianyun's fortune and prosper. They wanted to become the master of this world and change the people's fates. Or rather, they started from changing their own fates and developed to today's situation. Since the heavens are heartless, then let Tianyun take their place and rule over all things in the world. Did you know? They thought they could look down on all living things from high above. Young Master Omega Kotoku raised his eyebrows and looked at Arbor with a smile in his eyes. The little stoic sat there expressionlessly and said indifferently, concoct a drug that can allow ordinary people to watch themselves gradually turn from an ordinary person into a noble person with special abilities. That's right. Even if you were born an ordinary person, you can still become a superhuman who follows Tianyun's fortune and become a powerhouse, right? Why is this world so unfair? Why are some people born with outstanding talent, while others have nothing and can't even open their mystic meridians and walk on the path of cultivation? You have hope after eating Tianyun's mutated pill. Mu Xiaoxue looked at her in astonishment, feeling a bit panicked. She felt that what Arbor said next would probably be very cruel. She shook her head repeatedly, and her body involuntarily trembled as she retreated until she reached the corner of the wall. She wished she could wrap herself up and never see the light of day again. But do you think they made this kind of medicine completely for the good of the common people? No. This kind of medicine has very serious after effects. Your mother was in the know and even more so a user. You only saw that she obtained some abilities, but you didn't know that the mutation in her body was also very painful. Only 1 in a million people can obtain rare special abilities and become a powerhouse without paying any price. But the vast majority of them will only walk the path of an incurable walking corpse. Or perhaps, even if they were like your mother, who mutated once or twice and obtained a special ability, they still couldn't change the fact that their body was gradually deteriorating. Mu Xiaoxue, your mother couldn't control her body at all because of that kind of medicine, which was why she self-rotted step by step. She didn't want you to follow in her footsteps. She always wanted to fish you out of the big dye vat that is Tianyun. Arbor sneered. But how did you let her down? Sir Jojo looked at the woman sitting paralyzed on the ground with pity, and his gaze coldly swept over her body. I guess you also discovered recently that your body is a bit strange. You will soon be like your mother, rotting step by step, stiffening step by step, and step by step becoming a monster that you don't even know. Mu Xiaoxue kicked her legs and huddled in the corner, screaming involuntarily, Jade, Arbor, why you have a way to save me, don't you? Probably. Arbor nodded. After Mr. Su and Fairy Huang He's third stage of the medicine trial, the preliminary effect was estimated to have reached the stage of control and gradual healing. However, why should she save Mu Qingya's daughter? Mu Xiaoxue was courting death step by step, and it was Arbor who added fuel to the fire and gave her a push. Sir Jojo stared at Mu Xiaoxue, who was crawling over, and said indifferently, Tianyun coldly watched as you stupid people walked into the trap step by step. They were excited, wild, and incomparably excited. Because finally, they felt that they had become the ones who followed the will of the heavens, and could completely replace the heavenly Tao. They are the heavens, and you are a bunch of pitiful ants. If Tianyun wants you to live, you will live, and if Tianyun wants you to die, you will die. Do you know? All of this is just a game for them. Arbor couldn't help but laugh coldly. These ordinary civilians who pursue power, and those cultivators who were cultivated by them, mutated successfully, and then slowly decayed and died step by step. Do you know what these two types of people look like in the eyes of Tianyun's higher-ups? Like a joke. Civilians want to become cultivators, and cultivators want to obtain more supreme power. In the end, they fight back and forth and reach the same goal by different means. They will all die. As for the All-Seer's ancestors and their higher-ups, they coldly watched as you fools put on a great show that shocked the heavens and made ghosts and gods weep. Mu Xiaoxue was stunned, and Long Min was also completely dumbfounded. If Mu Xiaoxue was an ordinary civilian who desperately wanted to obtain power, then she, Long Min, was a cultivator who wanted to obtain further power. What did Arbor mean by this? That they would all reach the same goal by different means, and would all die? No, impossible, this liar was simply lying, wasn't he? Clap, clap, clap. Clap. Omega Kotoku couldn't help but laugh and clap his hands, nodding and praising, my little Qiao is still the smart one, seeing through things clearly. His eyes were strange, and there was a light green ripple in the depths of his bright eyes. Little Qiao, don't worry, now everything is over. What you said was originally the ancestors' plan. His decision, after so many years, can't keep up with today's era. Moreover, it has nothing to do with us, the younger generation. I will disband the entire Tianyun, for you. For you. Second young Master Qin's eyes rippled like jadeite ripples, rippling like clear water. Arbor looked at him coldly, but he didn't care at all. Because he had long been used to this little cold face, and it was fine once he got used to it. Someone come. Omega Kotoku waved his hand, and had people carry down Long Chang, who had long been roasted into a piece of charcoal by the thunder fire. Tang Quan and Tang Li went to drag Long Min and Mu Xiaoxue. Long Min didn't make a sound, she knew that begging for mercy was useless. But Mu Xiaoxue wailed like a ghost and wailed like a wolf, twisting her body with all her might, shouting harshly, Arbor, Arbor, you can't do this to me. I am your cousin. I am connected by blood, you can't do this, let go, let go. Tang Quan and Tang Li saw that her screams were unpleasant to the ears, so they walked up, planning to stuff her mouth with a rag. Mu Xiaoxiu had struggled to break free from Tang Quan and flew to Arbor's cage, her hair disheveled as she kowtowed, muttering crazily, "Let me go, okay? Let me go, let me go. I'll stay far away from you, I'll never seek revenge on you, I'll never seek revenge on you. You're so annoying." Omega Kotoku suddenly raised his hand, and Mu Xiaoxiu seemed to be pulled up by an invisible hand. She was suspended in the air, stretching out two pale hands, struggling to pull in the air. Her mouth was wide open, and her tongue was sticking out. It was as if an invisible rope was strangling her neck, so much so that she couldn't breathe smoothly. It was too painful. Her breathing slowly weakened, and Mu Xiaoxiu's eyes gradually bulged, the blood vessels on her forehead almost bursting. "Xiao Qiao doesn't want to talk to you at all, why do you keep bothering her?" Omega Kotoku tilted his head and glared at Mu Xiaoxiu angrily. He then turned to Arbor and said, "Xiao Qiao, if you don't want her to die so easily, I can help you think of a good way." Arbor felt his heart turn cold, and he didn't want to respond at all. Second young Master Qin suddenly swatted Mu Xiaoxiu, who was suspended in midair, like a kite with a broken string. She was sent flying by his palm and landed harshly outside the door. Zhao Qiran, who had wanted to step through the door, pulled back her embroidered shoes. Her eyes flashed, and she slowly retracted her leg. She looked down and saw Mu Xiaoxiu lying on the ground, dying. The veins on her head were bulging, and her eyes were horribly bulging. Her eyes were bloodshot, as if they were about to burst. It was a frightening sight. The two young maidservants following behind Zhao Qiran shrieked in fright at her terrifying appearance. "Shut up," Zhao Qiran coldly reprimanded, making the two impudent servant girls shut up. Omega Kotoku glanced at Jojo through the cage and suddenly threw out a jade talisman. A stream of light swiftly entered Mu Xiaoxiu's body. Zhao Qiran subconsciously took a few steps back, and her fingers clenched slightly under her sleeves. Mu Xiaoxiu, who had been lying on the ground, struggled with her limbs with a twisted expression, and suddenly shrank inch by inch. Not long after, a grayish piglet crawled out of the pile of tattered clothes, shaking its big ears, and crawled behind Zhao Qiran in horror. The two servant girls behind Zhao Qiran shrieked again and retreated in fright, crying out, "Miss, miss." Omega Kotoku's thin lips curled into a sneer, and he sent out a stream of holy power to shroud the gray piglet. "What are you doing?" Arbor didn't expect Omega Kotoku to do this. He used the transformation talisman to turn Mu Xiaoxiu into a piglet, and now he used holy power to seal her appearance. In this world, how many people could break the seal of his holy power? In other words, if this seal was not broken, even if the effect of the transformation talisman faded, the unlucky Mu Xiaoxiu would still continue to live in the form of an animal. Unless the seal of Omega Kotoku was broken, there was no other way. Before Arbor could say anything to stop him, Omega Kotoku reached into the cage and grabbed Jojo's chin. "Xiao Qiao, I don't want to hear you refuse. This will make me mistakenly think that you will be soft-hearted to others. You've never been soft-hearted to me, and now you're soft-hearted to others." Omega Kotoku's cold voice drilled into Arbor's ears, and her heart inexplicably tightened. "I'll be very angry," second young Master Qin muttered in his sleep and turned around to stand up. Narrowing his eyes, he raised his hand, and several bolts of lightning and fire landed beside that gray piglet with a swish. It frightened her into squealing and circled around Zhao Qiran and the two maidservants' legs. Her four hooves missed, and she fell down the steps. When the piglet got up, she discovered that her hind hooves seemed to be injured, but Mu Xiaoxiu didn't dare to stay here any longer in order to save her life. She hurriedly limped outside. Omega Kotoku didn't call for anyone to stop her. He turned around and chuckled at Arbor. "Xiao Qiao, is it fun?" "Fun your head. Zhao Qiran lowered her head slightly and took a few steps forward to bow. Young master. The ground suddenly shook violently. Long Min's charred corpse abruptly rolled down from the metal plate. Zhao Qiran's eyelids twitched when she saw the bones fall to the ground with a crisp crack. Arbor's small body in the cage also swayed slightly, and her eyes lit up. As a great talisman master, she knew very well that this shaking meant that the flying talisman array had been attacked from the inside. Her calculations were correct. Mo Lian and the others should have followed the city the moment it flew into the air. It was just that they had been looking for the array core, so they didn't meet up with her. Even Mo Lian and the others would need to spend a certain amount of time to completely break open this formation. As long as someone destroyed this flying talisman array, the entire rising city would still fall back down. It was just that the falling process might not be so beautiful. Lady Jojo was excited. She silently calculated the time it would take for someone to destroy the array, the time it would take for her body to recover after forging her bones, and everything after that. After calculating in her mind, she said to Chocho, "Can you contact Jojo's lotus?" "Master, Chocho can try, but it will take some time." After all, although Great Crown Prince and the others had a branch clone of Chocho, they were still isolated from all kinds of talisman arrays. It would take time to contact them. Okay. Arbor discussed with Chocho in her conscience for a while before looking up at Qin Xin. Second young master's expression suddenly changed, and he stared at the door with a malicious expression. He abruptly turned around. Jojo immediately put on her unchanging stoic face and faced him. "Little Jojo," he said softly to her, "wait for me." Lady Jojo cursed inwardly, "Who wants to wait for you, you pervert?" However, her expression did not change, and she even obediently nodded at him. This action of nodding truly pleased second young master. His icy expression softened in an instant. He looked at her and said with a smile, "Very soon." Then, he led Tang Quan, Tang Li, and the others out. Zhao Qiran clenched her fists and gave Arbor a deep look. In the end, she did not say anything and turned to leave with second young master. Seeing that everyone had finally left, Arbor could not help but sigh in relief. She sat in the cage, but secretly sped up the recovery of her body. Fortunately, her 5 senses had been blocked, so she did not feel any pain. Thus, outsiders could not see the slightest change in her expression. On the other hand, Alchemist Ouyang had wanted to check her pulse, but he gave Lady Jojo a fright. If he were to check her pulse now, the true condition of her body would be exposed. After all, her body had been rapidly recovering, and it was much better than it was 15 minutes ago. Fortunately, before Ouyang Su could begin the examination, second young master sent someone to call her away. Presumably, Tang Quan, Tang Li, and the others had also been injured in the process of stopping people from breaking the array. Thankfully, Alchemist Ouyang finally had something to do and did not have to watch her 24 hours a day. The earth shook, but the cage stood firm. Arbor rocked occasionally in the cage, but she was in a very good mood. Looking at this speed, Jojo's lotus would probably break through the array soon. The flying city was about to descend rapidly. Before that, shouldn't Lady Qiao Qiao make some preparations? "What are you doing?" Duge Ling's low and cold voice came from outside. Arbor listened carefully and suddenly realized that the group outside had begun to move. Chapter 55-40. Sir Jojo was a person who could clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. In the end, he still couldn't harden his heart and view them as celestial luck bandits and kill them all. Arbor entered the star domain and hurriedly recovered. In such a tense situation, having the time flow 12 times faster was a great help to her. In less than half an incense's time outside, Arbor completely recovered in the star domain. It was just that fusing with the last strand of soul thought fragment took a little longer. Fortunately, with the help of holy water and holy earth, Arbor finally finished fusing it. Seeing her open her eyes and jump up energetically, Cho-Cho couldn't help but wave its 2 tree branches and excitedly jump towards her. Master, Master. Tears streamed down Cho-Cho's face. You've suffered, Master. That's great. Now that little Master's bones had been refined and reborn, her body had become holy bones. Even if it was holy wood, it couldn't hurt little Master at all. Now, little Master was like an unkillable cockroach. Even if she was attacked by 5 holy spirits at the same time, they couldn't completely destroy her body. Ah, no, no, no. How could Master be so unlucky to be attacked by 5 holy spirits? At least he. Little Earth, Little Water, and the Crown Prince's holy fire couldn't possibly attack Master. Arbor blinked and suddenly said, "How is everyone now? The battle outside is very intense. Be careful when you go out, Master. The array core is almost destroyed. The earth is shaking outside." I'm talking about Fan Meng, Qin Xian, and the others. When Feng Changqing and the others went out, they saw Fan Yu, the 7 flowers, and young Master Song Feng. They were all injured, but it wasn't serious. The most troublesome thing is that Fan Meng's lightning and fire injuries need to be treated. But don't worry, Master. We've temporarily kept them in a nameless planet to raise them. With Little Earth and Little Water's help, Fan Meng should be fine. As for that eldest young Master Qin, Cho-Cho said solemnly, when we went out, he and Omega Kotoku were gone. Arbor hurriedly brought the little Traiant out of the star domain and hurriedly said, then Jojo's Lotus and the others, boom. Before he could finish his sentence, the entire ground shook violently. Moreover, the floor tiles under the cage began to crack like a spider web, spreading out inch by inch. Little Master, don't move. Cho-Cho exclaimed. She had a feeling that if the little Master Silver moved, she might fall down along with the broken ground. Xiao Mu expressionlessly looked at the startled Cho-Cho. I can fly. Cho-Cho blinked its round dog eyes. Oh, that's right. Even if Master Silver couldn't fly, she could still use the flying talisman. At most, she could fly with the cage. Pfft, Cho-Cho really had groundless fears. As he spoke, the ground shook violently a few more times. A figure stumbled through the door and hurriedly pushed the cage to get out. Arbor couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He looked at the man who was struggling outside for a long time and didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Oh Yangsu, you'd better run away quickly. No, this room is going to collapse very soon. Alchemist Oh Yangsu didn't have any cultivation, so it was truly a bit difficult for him to push such a large iron cage out the door. Arbor said expressionlessly, my men are about to enter. If you don't run now, you won't be able to run later. Oh Yangsu only thought she was joking. What do you mean by your men? Feng Zhangfei and the others had already rushed inside. Jojo. Hurry. At Feng Zhangxing's command, several Feng clansmen dashed forward and hastily carried the person and the cage out together. Oh Yangsu dazedly glanced at her and couldn't help but widen his eyes. You. You're standing. You're standing. Only now did he discover that the little crown princess was actually standing in the cage. How was this possible? Several hours ago, her meridians were still broken. How could she recover so quickly? This was impossible. As an alchemist, he was well aware of how serious the little stoic's injuries were. Feng Zhangfei grabbed him and raised his sword to chop down. Arbor hastily said, forget it. Proper business is more important. Feng Zhangfei tossed him aside, displeasure written all over his face. You're letting him go just like this? This person was extremely loyal and devoted to young Master Omega Kotoku. Who knew what kind of disaster would befall him if he was left behind? Arbor nodded. Oh, Yangsu normally stayed by Omega Kotoku's side and refined pills to save people. He never interfered with Heavenly Luck's affairs, let alone developed those harmful medicinal liquids. Actually, his crimes weren't that unforgivable. Besides, he didn't have any great enmity with him in his 2 lifetimes. One should spare people whenever possible. Feng Zhangfei sent his brother a look, and Feng Zhangqin instantly understood. Secretly restrain him and toss him to the crown prince to deal with. This darling, the little stoic, was actually just a paper tiger. Don't be fooled by her stoic face, her heart was actually very warm. She was 10,000 times more soft-hearted than that demon-like crown prince. Who knew how many lifetimes Mo Lien had accumulated good karma and good fortune to actually obtain such a stoic? The little stoic paced back and forth in the large cage, instructing everyone to cooperate with Mo Lien to destroy the nearby formation base. Duan Muqing, the little fatty, Qi Xianxian, and the group of senior sisters from the Holy Water sect all moved out to help. Just as the earth quaked and the walls collapsed, an explosion in midair attracted everyone's attention. Arbor looked up, and his gaze instantly froze. He saw a white-clothed figure suddenly drop down from the sky and heavily crash into the cage above his head with a boom. His body bounced weakly and finally rolled down from the iron cage, landing at Arbor's feet with a face covered in dirt. The air instantly turned still. Everyone held their breaths in anticipation as they looked up at the gorgeous red-clothed figure who had seized the opportunity to chase down. That person held a sword in one hand, and his grave and stern face was covered in austere killing intent. His eyes that stared at eldest Qin seemed to be flickering with the flames of enmity. Arbor crouched down and hastily stretched his hand out of the cage to grab that person's wrist. His meridians were in disarray, and the lightning and fire in his body were running amok. His situation was very bad. Arbor hastily took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Hey! Hey! Eldest young Sir Qin coughed and weakly covered his face. He frowned and teased, I actually let my Charles see my defeated appearance. How embarrassing. Arbor originally wanted to punch him and yell at him, what nonsense are you spouting? But seeing that he was covered in blood and his meridians were broken, he really couldn't fucking bear to be so ruthless. Don't waste your breath. I'll first stabilize the lightning and fire in your body, and then I'll give you. Eldest young Sir Qin's eyes brightened. My Charles, you don't want me to die. That's great. When I close my eyes now, I can recall the scene when we first met. At that time, you purposely left a row of crooked footprints under the snow plum tree. Your small face was paralyzed, and you even disguised yourself back then, making you look extremely ugly. But you were so bright and dazzling in the snowy world, simply as resplendent as the stars. Eldest young Sir Qin sighed softly. It truly was the bright moon and stars that he could never chase after in his entire life. Arbor was alarmed. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? You don't need to say your last words right now. You can say them after you've recovered. Jojo, how great would it be if I wasn't a member of the Qin family? But how could there be so many ifs in this world? Qin Xian. Arbor's expression shifted, and he couldn't help but cry out. What was going on with the person in front of her? He was slowly disintegrating and disappearing like fragments right before her eyes. She could save him. How could she not save him? But eldest Qin, whose soul was struck by the lightning and fire, really seemed to be disappearing. Arbor panicked and hastily tossed him into the star domain, stuffing him into the ice coffin that Murong Sun used earlier. He casually cast a few seals, temporarily sealing a portion of his divine soul that was dissipating. His complexion was like jade, and the cinnabar mark on his forehead had also faded by quite a bit. He silently laid inside the ice coffin like this, and there seemed to be a faintly discernible smile on his lips. However, he no longer had any life left. Moreover, his soul was completely destroyed by the lightning and fire, unlike Murong Sun, whose soul was perfectly preserved, so the soul-returning pill and body-returning pill were still effective on her. But this person, she didn't know if it was effective. Arbor tightly clenched his fists and flashed out again, sending countless invisible punches flying toward Omega Kotoku through the cage. Damn lunatic. Damn pervert. You won't even let off your own older brother. Inhumane, inhumane. However, Omega Kotoku coldly dodged and stared intently at her. You lied to me. It turned out that she had already recovered. No, perhaps her conscience wasn't sealed at all from the start. She even brought Eldest Chin into her mobile spirit domain. When he thought of this, jealousy and hatred flashed through Omega Kotoku's face. This girl Arbor truly would do anything that could infuriate him. Boom 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 boom. Omega Kotoku pounced onto the iron cage, and Feng Changqing and the others hastily rushed up to protect him. Everyone only heard a thunderous rumble that reverberated through the clouds. The city in front of them was disintegrating bit by bit like a sandstorm. Rubble and debris flew everywhere, and dust swirled in the air. Everyone felt their bodies sink, as if they were forcefully pulled by something, and all their objects fell down simultaneously. The flying talisman matrix was violently destroyed. The city turned into fine powder, and everything fell straight down. Arbor hastily slapped 2 flying talismans on herself before slapping the outside of the cage to stabilize herself. In a split second, the space in front of them violently distorted. 2 tall figures abruptly shuttled out of the distorted space, and without any explanation, they simultaneously struck out with their palms at Omega Kotoku's head. Omega Kotoku was infuriated, but he had already flashed away. Duanyu laughed brightly and said, "So it's you, second young master. Come, eat 2 of my thunder fireballs." Loud rumbling noises passed by in a flash. Duanyu supported the iron cage with one hand and giggled at the expressionless little stoic inside the cage. My Chiao, I didn't expect to meet you in this kind of situation." The little stoic remained expressionless and merely rolled her eyes in annoyance. "Stop blabbering and let me out quickly." Without needing her to say anything, Mo Lien had already swiftly melted the iron cage in front of her. However, Duanyu couldn't resist chuckling. "Jojo, is this cage good? Make one for Lotus later and lock him up inside. It'll also save him the trouble of attracting bees and butterflies outside and being very annoying." Mo Lien was busy melting the iron cage and couldn't divert her attention to refute him, so she couldn't help but feel indignant. Duanyu, this guy, was really trying to steal his woman. He'll leave this cage for him later. Arbor silently glanced at the man courting disaster. "I think Lotus will be left for you. She's truly my beloved wife. She's truly of one mind with me." Mo Lien was secretly delighted, but her hand sped up. It didn't take long for her to melt a gap that was half a person's height in the cage. Sir Jojo's head poked out, and with a lift of his body, he flew out. Mo Lien flung out a storage talisman to temporarily store away that iron cage. After she calmed down and melted her heart, she would reforge it and send it to Duanyu in a magnificent fashion. Humph. At this moment, the cage wasn't important. What was important was that he hastily reached out to catch his wife. Mo Lien's heart finally calmed down when he hugged her soft and fragrant body. At this moment, the 3 people were falling down at extreme speed. When they reached midair, the 3 people's figures tacitly disappeared. At the same time, Feng Changqing, Qi Xianxian, and the senior sisters from the Holy Water sect were also rapidly dragged back to the star domain by the sapling's countless branches. Only Mo Lien's cold shout was left in the air. Release the arrows. The hornet-like flying arrows turned into small dots, whooshing, 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 whooshing straight into the air. These arrows all contained a trace of divine or sacred energy. Rong and the 30,000 elites from the 3 provinces had been waiting for a long time. When they heard the order, they released the arrows on the spot without saying anything. The arrows pierced through the heads of the numerous zombies that fell down. These zombies, whose mobility was far inferior to cultivators, were completely shot to death before they could react in the air. After the arrow attack ended, Arbor and his group appeared in the air again. They floated down to the ground at the same time as Duanmu Qing, Feng Changqing, and the senior sisters from the Holy Water sect. At this time, the place they were standing on was already a basin of ruins. Rows of heads suddenly popped out from the surrounding high ground. Rong Qing and the rest exclaimed in delight, "Is everyone all right?" Arbor's signature face was stoic. "How could anything happen to us?" He casually tossed out a storage talisman and released the 200,000 divine country guards he had brought with him. Mo Lien ordered solemnly, "Clean up all the zombies in the kingdom of Qingzhou. If you discover people in the base who haven't completely turned into zombies and still retain their consciousness, then keep them alive for now." Arbor pondered for a moment before instructing again. "Yes." The divine country guards dispersed into action. After Crown Prince Rong waved his hand, the elites from the 3 provinces also moved together. Now that the kingdom of Qingzhou had become a wasteland, the only way to solve this problem from its root was to dispose of all the zombies that had turned into zombies. As for the remaining zombies that couldn't be recovered with medicine, they had to be disposed of as well. Otherwise, the situation would still spiral out of control. This couldn't be considered ruthless. It could only be said to be decisive. In order to preserve the majority of the population, they had to sacrifice the zombified portion of the population. Xiao Mu turned her head and looked at the desolated and dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls. Suddenly, he pulled Mo Lien's hand and retreated a few steps. Suddenly, a gurgling sound came from under her feet, and a hand as soft as noodles suddenly stretched out and abruptly grabbed Xiao Mu's ankle. Everyone was taken aback. Almost at the same time, they released countless streams of divine and saint power toward the hand. The power of the 5 spirits exploded, and the hand retracted in pain. But in the blink of an eye, 7 to 8 noodle-like hands emerged from the rubble and dragged Xiao Mu over. "Jojo!" Everyone was shocked and quickly chased after him. The noodle-like hands and feet stretched out endlessly from the ruins. It was so disgusting that it made them want to vomit. Duanmu Qing, Qi Xianxian, and the rest tried their best to chop off these hands and feet. However, these things kept popping out, and it made their hair stand on end. They couldn't help but be shocked. "Master!" Qiu cried out in shock. Arbor, however, was very calm. "Don't panic. It's just a 1,000-year-old zombie. Don't worry, let's see what he wants to do." Arbor was dragged out of the ruins by these hands and feet. This object had been hiding under the ruins all along and had never revealed its true appearance. However, Xiao Mu had a rough idea of its identity. "Stop hiding. Come out and meet me, Ancestor He Jin." Boom! A strange ball-shaped object suddenly emerged from the ruins. When everyone saw this strange-looking thing, they almost vomited for a moment. This person had hundreds and thousands of heads that were strangely connected together. Hands and feet kept popping out from the torso. It was like a tree, a strange tree. Leaves, branches, and whatnot kept popping out from the branches. It looked like someone who had gone crazy from taking drugs. It was ugly and made people tremble with fear. Arbor was wrapped around by a few of these hands and hung in the air. As expected of the little stoic, Rong Qing and the rest couldn't help but admire her inwardly. If it were any other young lady from another family, they would have long vomited from such a disgusting scene. How could they act like the stoic and stare at Zhang Yichen's unchanging face without any expression? Qi Xianxian was about to cry from disgust. She clenched her fists tightly and stared nervously at Arbor. Jojo, Jojo. These hands and feet didn't wrap around anyone but Arbor. They dragged Arbor and sprinted towards the mountain forest at an extremely fast speed. After a short moment, they arrived at the entrance of a cave. The monster with hands, feet, and heads stopped at the entrance. Heads and limbs kept growing out from the torso. It was as if it freaking ate too many tonics and got high, then became a pervert. This should be the entrance to the 9 Serenities underground palace created by Heavenly Kismet. Duan Yu's expression changed. We can't let it drag Jojo inside. Everyone attacked that monster with all their might. However, that thing had too many hands, feet, and heads. Even after destroying half of them, they still kept growing like the tree of eternity and couldn't be completely exterminated. Ha ha ha. A voice came from the countless heads as if it was buried deep inside the monster. Little girl with good talent, your talent will no longer be of use in the future. Don't think of leaving my 9 Serenities underground palace for the rest of your life. This old man wants you to carry such good talent with you and live in pain and sorrow for the rest of your life. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Arbor pulled out the Fushi greatsword with a flip of his hand. This time, Sir Jojo, whose soul had already stabilized, pulled out the Fushi greatsword almost effortlessly. As soon as this sword appeared, everyone felt the surrounding air suddenly turn cold, and their bodies were enveloped by a terrifying pressure. Even the transcendent realm experts present were dumbfounded. They could not control the sword intent that surged out of their bodies. Resonance. This Fushi greatsword was so powerful that it could cause the spiritual swords sealed in everyone's consciousness to resonate with sword intent. As soon as this thought appeared, the hundreds of divine continent guards standing in the front row could not help but hand over their spiritual swords. Holy Sunmi Yen and Venerable Peach Blossom, who had rushed over, could not help but twitch their mouths. As soon as they came over, they felt suppressed. A deep power forced them to take out the swords in their own consciousness. Whoosh! 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 Hundreds of thousands of spiritual artifacts, divine artifacts, and even saint artifacts were all guided by the Fushi greatsword and resonated with its terrifying sword intent. All of a sudden, tens of thousands of swords shot out and slashed at the monster's limbs and head. They were scattered all over the place. Even though the freak had many heads, it could only wither on the verge of death after being slashed by so many spiritual artifacts, divine artifacts, and saint artifacts at the same time. The little stoic stood in the air with her plain clothes and ink-black hair. At this time, she had completely broken free from the entanglement of the soft limbs. Qi Xianxian looked up at her and involuntarily let out a long exclamation. My Qiao, you're truly beautiful. Arbor held the Fushi greatsword in one hand and looked down at the thousand-legged, thousand-armed freak that was gradually going limp like a lump of rotten meat. She turned around and smiled at Mo Lien. Just as she was about to fly past, a red figure rushed out from the side and abruptly clamped down on her waist. Qin Axayan stared icily at Arbor and dragged her into the 9 Gloom underground palace. Little Qiao, accompany me forever, okay? His gentle voice, which sounded like a raving, fell into Arbor's ears, causing all the hair on Sir Jojo's body to stand on end. This freak, how dare he? Once you enter the 9 Gloom underground palace, there's no possibility of walking out forever. This place leads to the netherworld, to the shattered void. Accompany me, let's stay in the void together forever, okay? Arbor's pupils abruptly contracted. No. I won't go to the void. I won't go to that ghastly place. I won't go to the void ever again, I won't go to that ghastly place ever again. What else could she have if she went to the void? Would the void's power directly destroy her star domain as well? There were so many things she loved in the star domain, the home she had set up, her friends and family, everything. Was he going to deprive her of everything? Suddenly, a hand tightly grasped her arm. A warm feeling melted into her heart in a split second, and a familiar strength instantly melted her uneasiness. Mo Lien tore open the distorted space and abruptly appeared behind her, grabbing her hand. That warm and solid power instantly made all of her fear and uneasiness disappear without a trace. JoJo's Ren had come. In this life, JoJo was no longer alone. No matter when or where, JoJo's Ren would always be by JoJo's side, accompanying her, protecting her, and sharing life and death with her. Duan Yu leaped forward, and the Devil Emperor's sword ferociously slashed down with a ball of silver-white flames, slashing at Sir Omega Kotoku's arm. Omega Kotoku's body had been modified to be invulnerable. Although this slash left a mark on his arm, it did not sever his arm. His left hand was still tightly gripping Arbor's waist, dragging her along with Mo Lien and Duan Yu toward the entrance of the Nine Gloom underground palace. At the critical moment, Mo Lien and Duan Yu once again swung their swords and fiercely slashed at Omega Kotoku. Venerable Peach Blossom and the others chased after them, but they did not care about strategy. Right now, they only cared about headbutting Omega Kotoku. Power surged for a split second. Arbor used the power of time in her body and paused for less than a second. It was in this second that Duan Yu and Mo Lien's combined attack struck Omega Kotoku. Arbor then extended her small leg and ruthlessly kicked Omega Kotoku away. At the same time, Mo Lien hastily tore open a space in front of her. She hugged Arbor with one hand, kicked He Shurchin, and pulled Duan Yu. Everyone hastily scrambled back. 1 second, 1 breath's worth of time. Omega Kotoku dazedly discovered that the world had completely changed. At this time, he was the only one left, and he fiercely fell toward the entrance of the Nine Gloom underground palace. Xiao Qiao. His furious roar was ruthlessly suppressed by a figure that followed after him. Arbor was originally afraid that this lunatic would jump out from that whatever Nine Gloom underground palace entrance. However, a beautiful figure inexplicably jumped out from the side and directly fell inside with Omega Kotoku in her arms. This whatever Nine Gloom underground palace was also very strange. It looked just like a cave. After the two figures fell in one after the other, that cave entrance abruptly closed. Only a mountain wall was left in front of them, and that cave entrance was completely gone. Everyone didn't dare to approach. Instead, it was Lotus, who was dragging JoJo, who hastily retreated a few steps. Xiao Qiao hung on Xiao Qiao Lian's body like a koala. Her eyes were wide open as she tried her best to turn her head around. There was a messy pile of minced meat lying in front of the mountain wall. Occasionally, bubbles would emerge from it, as if Ancestor Black Gold hadn't died completely. However, he was truly too disgusting, so no one wanted to approach him. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine, Mo Lien muttered to herself as she continuously patted JoJo's back. Beside her, Duan Yu, He Shurchin, and the others were also drenched in cold sweat, and their hearts couldn't stop thumping wildly. It was no wonder that Mo Lien was about to go crazy from fright. In that instant just now, they all thought that they were about to lose JoJo and lose her forever. JoJo patted her chest with one hand while her other hand anxiously patted Mo Lien's chest. Don't panic, don't panic. Everyone silently glanced at her. When they saw her sneakily looking around with her forehead drenched in sweat and lively appearance, their moods inexplicably improved. Qi Xianxian giggled and pulled Jojo off of Lotus. She hugged her tightly and pounded her back with all her might. You scared me to death, Jojo. Su Shanshan, Little Pao, and the other Holy Water sect sisters also surrounded Arbor and hugged her in unison, nearly drowning her tiny arms and legs. Little treasure. A startled cry descended from the sky. Arbor hastily pulled away Qi Xianxian and the others who were hugging her and looked up. She saw two figures swiftly descending and abruptly appearing in front of her. They were dressed in red and had similarly exquisite features. Their noble and gorgeous auras were exceptional and otherworldly. Qi Xianxian and the others couldn't help but be astonished. Master! Aunt Master! Arbor hastily ran over and complained while still in a state of shock. Master, Aunt Master, I almost couldn't see you guys again. I was almost thrown into the void. That pile of flesh wanted to catch me and throw me into the void. She was scared to death, and her heart was still pounding even now. She didn't want to go anywhere. She only wanted to stay by Jojo's side. She wanted to stay by Jojo's side for the rest of her life. Xian Huang and Against the Sky hastily hugged her and checked her from head to toe before sighing in relief when they found that she was fine. After the two of them discovered that their disciple's Fushi greatsword had moved, they hurriedly rushed over and even released their husband along the way. They worked together to beat up the Heavenly Law before successfully running over. The annoying Heavenly Law kept saying that they couldn't act rashly, couldn't overstep their boundaries, and couldn't interfere with the matters here. Bullshit, their disciple was almost gone. Who would talk nonsense with him? Little treasure, don't be afraid. Xian Huang held her little hand and patted her chest, then reached out and patted her. It's all right now. Against the Sky couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Xian Huang. Call me senior sister. A certain someone glanced at him. Go over there and take a look. What was that thing? A pile of mincemeat was lying there motionless, and bubbles would appear from time to time. No one would believe that it was a person. At this moment, the pile of mincemeat suddenly rolled, and half a head with a blurry face appeared from the bubbles. Xian Huang. Xian Huang. You are Xian Huang. Against the Sky couldn't help but laugh out loud. Senior sister, this pile of mincemeat actually knows you. Senior sister. You are against the heavens. You are against the heavens. Xian Huang couldn't help but twitch her mouth and teased, Junior sister, he knows you too. Speechless, save me. Save me. That person roared in a deep voice. Save me. What are you? Why should I save you? Xian Huang couldn't help but roll her eyes. Junior sister, go and deal with it. Look at it, it is already in this state, but it can still speak. What the hell is this thing? It is simply too unsightly and against the rules of human survival. Against the Sky pursed his lips, and with a swipe of his hand, a heaven-pointing sword appeared. Holding the sword, he took a few steps forward. That pile of mincemeat couldn't help but roar angrily, how dare you? Do you know who I am? I am you. Senior brother Black Gold. Against the Sky's footsteps paused, and Sir Jojo couldn't help but tighten his grip on Master's hand. What? This person said that he was his master and martial uncle's senior brother, then wasn't that Sir Jojo had been chopping his own martial uncle for so long? Jojo looked at Xian Huang's master, dumbfounded. Master also looked at Against the Sky with a dumbfounded expression. Did I hear wrongly? At this moment, Against the Sky had already walked in front of Ancestor Black Gold. Looking at the disgusting scene, his stomach churned. I am going to vomit. Junior sister, you are pregnant again. Pregnant your head. Against the Sky suppressed the urge to vomit, kept his sword, turned around and ran. As he ran, he shouted, "No, no, my heaven-pointing sword, I can't chop such a disgusting thing. Heavenly Tao, Heavenly Tao. Hurry up and use a thunder fire to destroy it, so disgusting." Boom! Along with the thunder flame, Ancestor Black Gold let out a lingering roar, heaven-defying. You treacherous thing! How dare you do this to your senior brother? Xian Huang. Against the Sky. You actually killed me twice. I will reincarnate for all eternity, and even if I become a ghost, I will not let you off. Those who obey the heavens prosper, those who defy the heavens perish. Heavenly Tao will last for thousands of years, and prosper with the world. Against the Sky was speechless as he turned back to take a look. All he saw was a pile of ash and smoke. The pile of meat had been blown away by the thunder fire. Chapter 55-41. Take a look, freshly baked sesame seed cakes. 10 spirit stones for 1 cake. Sesame seed cakes, sesame seed cakes. Sesame seed cakes that are hard to come by in 100 years, limited to 50 pieces. Once they're sold out, we'll immediately pack up and leave. Little doll, don't push around, what are you doing? Little brat, line up at the back. Our dear baby Mo raised his pair of black phoenix eyes and glanced at the uncle with red eyebrows and green eyes, his little mouth drooping slightly. The little boy was about 4 or 5 years old, his fair and jade-like appearance was instantly lovable. This uncle was also someone who cared about appearances. When he saw the little boy's appearance, his attitude immediately softened a little, and he put on an amiable expression and said, "Little doll, where are your parents? Why are you running around alone? Looking at your age, shouldn't you be studying in the boy division of Sacred Academy right now? Why are you wandering around alone here?" Baby Mo glanced at the uncle who was talking non-stop, then turned to look outside the crowd. His eyes rolled, and he said pitifully, "Uncle, I've been hungry for 2 days and 3 nights, can you let me cut the queue and buy a sesame seed cake first?" This sesame seed cake was actually limited to 50 pieces a month, it must be a delicacy in the world. Baby Mo thought. He had probably never eaten such delicious sesame seed cake in his life, he must try it. Little furball, where are you?" Everyone turned to look, only to see a bald little fellow who was half the height of a human scampering over, trying to squeeze into the crowd. This little baldy was carrying a small floral cloth package, a simple backpack on his back, and another backpack around his neck. Carrying all kinds of bags, big and small, he jumped over and squeezed into the crowd noisily. Make way, don't squeeze Lord Guangguang. How dare you, what are you touching? You're not allowed to touch Lord Guangguang's head." Everyone couldn't help but laugh, and a woman even reached out to touch the child's bald head in amusement. Guangguang squeezed through the crowd with great difficulty, and bounced to Baby Mo's side with bags of various sizes. He took a glance and exclaimed, "Little furball, what are you doing?" Baby Mo was currently raising his little arm up high, handing over 10 spirit stones to the old man who was selling sesame seed cakes. When he turned around and saw Sir Guangguang staring at him with his round eyes and staring at the sesame seed cake in his hand, he felt his heart ache. The little guy took out another 10 spirit stones from his sleeve and handed them to the old man pitifully. "Grandpa, can you give me a slightly bigger piece of cake?" The corners of everyone's mouths twitched, and they suddenly felt guilty for exploiting a child. The old man's wrinkled face stiffened, and then he coughed dryly. Forget it, I'll give you another one. Baby Mo's eyes lit up. Lord Guangguang's eyes also lit up. Being stared at by the two little guys who looked like New Year's dolls, Uncle Sesame Cake suddenly felt that the misty Saint realm seemed to have brightened up a little. The two children thanked him politely and took the pancakes from the old man. They took a bite carefully as they squeezed through the crowd. That was called hard. It was so hard that their little teeth almost knocked out. Baby Mo and Lord Guangguang instantly shed 2 lines of remorseful tears. His 10 spirit stones, why couldn't he buy something else? They shouldn't have had any hope for the food in the Saint realm. Sitting on the roof far away, Venerable Peach Blossom, who saw this scene, laughed so hard that he fell over. Chapter 55-42. Oh my God! Baby Mo, this little brat, really had an endless source of jokes every day. This was their 3rd day in the Holy Region, and Baby Mo's jokes could probably last a year. Venerable Peach Blossom couldn't help but think, his Jojo must have been this interesting when he was young. If Jojo knew what he was thinking, he would definitely tell him expressionlessly, "You guessed wrong. My childhood was very boring." Baby Mo looked at the burdensome hard sesame seed cake in his hand and exchanged glances with Sir Guangguang. The two little ones were so regretful that their eyes were brimming with tears. Sir Guangguang even stretched out his trembling hands and held Baby Mo tightly. "Little furball, what should we do? We were fooled." He didn't expect Baby Mo, who was so smart, to be fooled like this. It was really detestable. When they saw so many people lining up, they thought that this sesame seed cake was the best delicacy in the world and was worth cherishing. They were wrong. They shouldn't have had such expectations for the food in the Holy Region. In the Divine Land, 10 spiritual stones were equivalent to 10,000 spirit coins. 10,000 spirit coins could buy a lot of snacks in China, but now the two of them were speechless and looked at the hard sesame seed cake in each other's hands with tears streaming down their faces. "Let's go back and give it to Daddy." Baby Mo's eyes were watery. He sniffled and thought for a while with his head tilted. He took out a small cloth pouch from his pocket and put the sesame seed cake that he had taken a small bite of into it. Sir Guangguang hurriedly threw the sesame seed cake in his hand into the pouch. "The academician said that we should respect and love our parents. Then I'll give this to the stoic mother." Baby Mo nodded expressionlessly and said ruefully, "It's shameful to waste food." "Yes, we shouldn't waste food." Sir Guangguang looked at Baby Mo with heartache. "We spent 10 extra spirit stones today. Who should we get them back from?" "I think it should be Uncle Aoye." "I think so too." Sir Guangguang nodded his bald little head in all seriousness. "Uncle Aoye has been working hard recently. He has to send little Furball to the academy every day. Let's just give him a break tomorrow. Let him pay 10 spirit stones in exchange for a day's break. He should be very willing." Uncle Aoye, who was hiding in the dark, silently took out a handkerchief and wiped the corners of his eyes. It really wasn't easy being a subordinate. After being cheated by his master, he would be cheated by his mistress. After being cheated by his mistress, he would be cheated by his little master. Generation after generation, he would never be done with it. The two little ones discussed the countermeasures and felt that the matter was perfectly resolved. They happily put away the bag of sesame seed cakes. Sir Guangguang carried bags of various sizes and followed beside Baby Mo. Along the way, he asked, "Little dumpling, where are you going? You don't intend to return to the academy? We've already come out." Since he still had to copy books when he got back, he might as well take a stroll first. At most, I'll copy a few pages of books. They were all copying, so there was not much difference between copying more and copying less. Perfect. Sir Guangguang looked at his little master with adoration and nodded vigorously. Little dumpling, you're so smart. Say, the food in the sacred region is so disgusting. What do these cultivators eat every day? I heard from Uncle Peach Blossom that they didn't eat it before. Every day, I'll drink the wind and admire the moon. If worse comes to worst, I'll just eat dirt when I'm too hungry. What? Lord Guangguang looked at Baby Mo in shock. This is too exaggerated. Is it hard to swallow? Chapter 55-43. Cough, cough, cough. Cough. Supremacy Peach Blossom did not expect Baby Mo to misinterpret his words. When did he say that the people of the holy region had to eat dirt? The conversation between these two brats was full of holes. Baby Mo, this little scoundrel, had indeed inherited his father's sly personality. In fact, he was even worse than his father. Little furball, did you hear anything? Maybe Uncle Aoyi is secretly following us again. Baby Mo made a judgment based on his professional experience. Then, he shook his head expressionlessly. Sigh, they're really worried sick. Lord Guangguang nodded repeatedly. Yes, he's been following us all day. I already said that nothing would happen. Don't bother about him. Let's go. Uncle Aoyi is no longer a child. He will follow us himself. Student Aoyi, who had been following them, twitched his mouth silently. To be a shadow guard now, he had to have another skill to rely on. He held back his laughter. Lord Guangguang kicked Tada as he followed beside Baby Mo, little furball. There's only one market in the holy region. It wasn't easy to find an old man selling sesame seed cakes, but he's actually a swindler. The sesame seed cakes he sells are so disgusting. There are so many people beside him pulling in business for this old man. I think it's too shameless. They even want to cheat us two children of our money. Baby Mo nodded seriously. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Then let's report him. Lord Guangguang supported his little master unconditionally. As long as his little master said it, it was definitely right. His little master was the smartest person in the world. Whatever he said, Lord Guangguang just had to do it without using his brain. Little furball, where should we go to report him? Do you remember? 2 days ago, 2 people came to greet Daddy. One was called Dongfang Yuzhu, and the other was called Beifang Yuzhu. The 2 little ones nodded. They looked at each other and said in unison, what strange names. Little furball, now that you mention it, I suddenly remember that there were 2 people like that. Daddy also said that they were 2 big brothers in the holy region, the people in charge or something. Let's go report one of them, the 2 little ones said in unison again. The 2 of them grumbled angrily along the way, it's too disgusting. That's right. My teeth almost fell out. Liar. Since there were so many people supporting them, they should all be arrested. Put him in prison. Little dumpling, do you think there's a prison here? If you don't, then ask father to build a big prison for them. Little dumpling, you're so smart. Little master was indeed the smartest person in the world. Stay up late, who was following in the dark, almost slipped and fell to the ground. I really can't. Tomorrow, it would be better to let Xiao Yi follow the little master. He was about to die of laughter because of them. Only the peach blossom deity had good eyesight. He hid further away and listened to the conversation between the 2 little ones on the roof. He could laugh wantonly without anyone noticing. He was having a hard time holding it in. What a pity. I spent 10 spirit stones to buy 2 pieces of broken sesame seed cake. And it's so disgusting. Master Guangguang was angry. Then what else is there to shop around here? I don't know. Mother said that only by being knowledgeable can one be wise. I feel that at our age, we should walk around more, shop more, and see more things. It's good for wisdom. Chapter 55-44. Little Furball, I think you're right. Lord Guangguang nodded heavily. Then let's walk around and take a look. We've only been in the holy region for a few days. To be honest, we haven't walked around yet. Lord Guangguang followed baby Mo with small steps. Yeah, I was sent to the Holy Academy by Daddy the moment I arrived. Baby Mo pouted. Yeah, Daddy's bad. Do you think he did it on purpose? He did it on purpose. Humph, he really doesn't want little Furball to appear in front of Mommy all the time. Bad guy. The 2 little ones scolded angrily. Lord Guangguang suddenly tugged at baby Mo's sleeve. Little Furball, look, these cultivator uncles in the holy region are so pitiful. Yeah. Look at them walking on the road, all of them are drooping their heads as if they can't lift their spirits at all. They look so miserable. Daddy said that those who can ascend to the holy region should be at least mystique venerable rank. Lord Guangguang muttered softly, in our China, which mystique venerable rank big shot isn't unparalleled? Baby Mo nodded vigorously. The holy region should be full of transcendent rank cultivators, starting from mystique venerable rank. If they hadn't reached transcendent rank, it was probably because the children of these transcendent rank cultivators hadn't reached mystique venerable rank yet. For example, baby Mo. Or perhaps like Mommy, who came with Daddy, the relatives of transcendent rank cultivators? But look at them, wow, they're all dressed like beggars. That's right. How strange. Guangguang, let's be careful, they might all be pretending. Why would they want to pretend? I don't know. Baby Mo shook his head and said with a straight face, maybe they're trying to trick foreigners like us. The 2 of them looked at each other and nodded at the same time. They both felt that their suspicions were very reasonable. They had to be wary of these people. These actors might like to bully outsiders like them. The people of the holy region were like frosted eggplants, all of them drooped their heads and looked like they had nothing to live for as they walked past them. A gust of autumn wind rustled past. Baby Mo turned around to take a look. Those figures seemed to be trembling slightly. Boom! A female cultivator who was originally walking in front of baby Mo with a hunched back and drooping head suddenly fell to the ground without any warning. It was extremely sudden. The 2 little ones jumped back at the same time, holding each other's little paws. With nervous little expressions, they said in unison, "Be careful. Be careful. It's a scam. You can't help her." I've heard Grandmaster and Marshal Granduncle mention that people who suddenly fall in front of you are 100% scammers. If you help them up, you'll be blackmailed. I'll swindle you until your mansion becomes a thatched hut. The 2 of them hurriedly covered their small pouches, revealing a vigilant expression. At the same time, a tall white figure flashed to the side of the peach blossom god, who was lying on the roof. He saw this fellow holding the wine jug and laughing so hard that he slapped his thigh without a care for his image. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. What's wrong? Reverend Peach Blossom laughed uncontrollably and pointed at the street not far away. Holy Sunmi Yen looked down and saw Aoyi sneakily hiding under an old tree by the street. Not far away, 2 little ones were holding hands with nervous expressions on their faces. Chapter 55-45. A middle-aged man with a crooked neck walked out from the side, and with an extremely slow speed, he slowly walked towards the fallen female cultivator. Baby Mo hurriedly went forward and tugged at that person's clothes, his phoenix eyes bulging. "This uncle, you have to consider carefully. Look at how old she is, she can fall on the streets just by walking. Even an idiot would know that she's a liar." Right, liar, liar. If you go up to help her up now, I guarantee that your mansion will turn into a thatched hut. A divine artifact will turn into a mystic artifact, you'll lose your family fortune. Right, lose my family fortune, lose my family fortune. Lord Guangguang nodded repeatedly again, expressing his agreement with Baby Mo's words. I'll lose your head. Where did this brat come from? Go play at the side. That middle-aged man suddenly turned around. A pair of eyes glowed with a green light, on his unshaven face, two messy strands of long gray hair hanging in front of his forehead floated in front of his eyes. Ah, it's a corpse puppet. The two little ones suddenly hugged each other, crying out excitedly. Quick, little dumplings, little dumplings. Lord Guangguang shouted. Baby Mo hurriedly took out a small booklet from his bosom, his little hands flipping through the pages. The two little heads huddled together, saying in unison, Look. It's recorded in Mother's corpse puppet roster. Eyes glowing green, slow movements, disheveled hair, dull eyes, unable to see its true appearance, this must be a mid-level corpse puppet. Quick, freeze him. The two little ones hurriedly took out a few talismans from their sleeves and threw them over. The surrounding crowd silently watched the two's performance, and could not help but twitch their mouths. That unlucky middle-aged man had over a dozen talismans stuck on his body, fluttering in the wind. This person was so angry that he reached out to grab the talismans that flew to his forehead, glaring at Baby Mo as he said angrily, Who's a corpse puppet? How could that damn thing from the lower star domain come to our sacred region? These two brats with damaged brains actually dared to call him a corpse puppet, he was so angry. This is my daughter. The middle-aged man pointed at the female cultivator lying on the ground, his face darkening as he roared furiously. These two kids had so many tricks up their sleeves, he wondered which family they were from. Scamming your head. Oh. The two children's black eyes moved, and they held each other's hands and took a step back at the same time. When they saw the middle-aged man helping the unconscious female cultivator to sit up, the two children finally saw the female cultivator's true appearance. He was even more miserable than his father's unshaven middle-aged uncle. He couldn't tell her age, but he saw that the female cultivator's cheeks were sunken, and her entire body was bony like a skeleton. Uncle, what's wrong with your daughter? Baby Mo secretly stuffed the corpse puppet roster into his sleeve and asked curiously. The middle-aged man glared at them. Why are you asking when you already know the answer? What else could it be? Isn't it just hunger? Fainted from hunger. Baby Mo and Lord Guangguang cried out in unison as if they had heard a fantasy story. Following that, GMO Baby hurriedly took a few steps forward and untied a small cloth pouch from his body. His eyes were filled with emotions and sparkling as he cutely looked at the middle-aged man. Uncle, here are 2 pieces of sesame seed cake for 20 spirit stones, do you want to buy them? Aoyi, who was standing in the corner, lost his balance and almost slipped on the ground. Chapter 55-46. That middle-aged man saw the doll-like child in front of him looking at him with sparkling eyes full of emotion. He took out a small cloth pouch from his waist, thinking that the other was going to gift him something. The result, it was money. The middle-aged man took the cloth pouch and angrily threw 20 spirit stones to Baby Mo, then supported his daughter and left. As he walked, he muttered, selling 2 sesame seed cakes for money, I don't know whose child is so shrewd. The Shioja who had seen baby Mo buy sesame seed cakes earlier couldn't help but twitch their mouths as they watched. They thought to themselves, if you knew, this little brat was trying to get something for nothing, spending 10 spirit stones at the cost price, then selling it to you for a net profit of 10 spirit stones. The sesame seed cake he gave you, and each of them took a small bite, what would you think? Baby Mo turned around, and reached out a small paw with Guangguang Darren, excitedly bumping palms. That's great. Guangguang Darren said happily, such a disgusting sesame seed cake, I finally don't have to bring it home to show filial piety to father and mother. Little dumpling, we already sold that sesame seed cake to Uncle Idiot. Then are we still going to find that Dongfang Yuzhu and report that old grandpa? Baby Mo had a serious expression as he nodded solemnly, saying, we have to report when we see injustice. We can't sympathize with old grandpa's inaction because he's old. Mother said, there's no difference between old and young bad people. Bad people must receive the punishment they deserve. Guangguang Darren clapped his hands vigorously, giving face. Little dumpling, you said it very well. Then where do we go to find Dongfang Yuzhu now? This sacred region was a vast expanse of whiteness, and there weren't any manors or residences in sight. All of the Shioja habitually found a place to meditate and cultivate. This place is really terrible. Baby Mo shook his little head speechlessly. If we knew this damned place wasn't fun, we wouldn't have come here. But Stoic Mother said that we have to go everywhere to gain experience in order to grow. We can't limit ourselves to one place. We've already explored the entire divine continent in these 2 years. Baby Mo nodded. Mother is right. But this sacred region is too simple and crude. That's right. I think these transcendent realm cultivators are all like idiots. They don't even know how to build a house for themselves when they sleep in the wild. I heard from Uncle Rotten Peach Blossom that after they came here, they didn't even have a place to wash up. Baby Mo said expressionlessly with a taut face. Unbelievable. Lord Guangguang also cried out, unbelievable. This is simply not a place for humans to pass through. It said that you can only bathe once a year. Men and women live together. All of them look malnourished. If I tell little Yuan about this, he definitely won't believe me. I heard that they usually have to find a secluded place far away to relieve themselves. They also have to enclose the ground, make it into a prison, digging a deep hole. Those female cultivators are especially troublesome. What if I have diarrhea? What if I have to relieve myself all day long? Don't worry, they eat dirt every day and won't be full. It's impossible for them to have diarrhea. Baby Mo shook his head and looked at Lord Guangguang sympathetically. The 2 little ones said in unison, too tragic. Chapter 55-47. Holy Sunmi Yen, who was eavesdropping far behind the 2, glanced at Divine Peach Blossom in amusement. I say, what do you usually talk about with the child? Did they talk about such funny topics all day long? Speechless, Ma Shurchen glanced at him. Do you think I'm the one who said that? It's most likely Mo Lien who told the child this. What about enclosing the land into a prison and digging a deep hole to relieve himself? How could he say such boring things? I told the child before that the conditions in the holy region are more difficult. If the child is not used to living here, he can still live in the star region. How would I know that he could imagine so much? He even said that we're eating dirt here. Ma Shurchen raised her hand to cover her face. She really didn't want to talk to this child later. Who did he resemble? He clearly had a stoic face, but he was a chatterbox. She wondered if it was because he spent too much time with the little monk that he inherited the bad habit of being a chatterbox. The two of them followed behind the two children from afar. They watched as they walked for a while, taking out a crumpled piece of paper from time to time to ask passers-by. Holy Sunmi Yen couldn't help but tilt his head and want to laugh. What are they doing? What do you think that piece of paper is? Uncle. A passerby realized that the hem of his clothes had been tugged twice and hurriedly pulled it back. Just as he was about to get angry, he lowered his head and saw two delicate little faces looking up at him. The uncle smoothed out the creases of his clothes and patted them rather lovingly. Then, he put on an amiable face and asked, "Child, what's the matter?" "Uncle, do you recognize the person in the painting?" That person took the crumpled paper and looked at it. Isn't this Master Dongfang?" Although this painting was crumpled, it captured the essence of Master Dongfang's handsome appearance. It was really quite similar and could be recognized at a glance. Yes, it's Dongfang Yuzhu. Baby Mo and Lord Guangguang nodded repeatedly. "Uncle, where are we going to find him?" Li Yang lowered his head to look at the two children and saw that they were both dressed in blue boy robes. The color and style of the clothes were clearly the uniform of the boy branch of the Sacred Academy. Children who were able to attend the Holy Academy at such a young age must be from an upper-middle-class family. Moreover, the two children had a fair and tender appearance. It seemed that they usually ate well. How did he sneak out of the academy? "My two little friends, why are you looking for Master Dongfang?" Baby Mo looked at him with curved eyes. "Uncle, let's report this to Dongfang Yuzhu." "Yes, report an old grandpa." He set up a stall on the street and hired a lot of people to help him. The sesame seed cakes he sells are very hard. When we bit into them, our teeth almost broke. Baby Mo nodded repeatedly at the side. "Uncle, show us the way. We want to report this swindler grandpa to Dongfang Yuzhu." Lord Guangguang nodded and patted Li Yang's calf. "Uncle, don't worry. Lead the way for us. We won't betray you." The corner of Li Yang's mouth twitched. For a moment, he was speechless. Strange, why do I feel like laughing? Baby Mo glanced at him and saw his strange expression. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, a light bulb flashed in his mind. The little fellow lowered his little head and took out a piece of spirit stone from his little money pouch. He pulled Li Yang's hand and stuffed it into it. He nodded and said seriously, "Uncle, don't worry. We won't skimp on your guide fee." Chapter 55-48. Lord Guangguang nodded his little bald head. We're good people, uncle." Li Yang's expression instantly looked like he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at the spirit stones stuffed in his hand and looking down at the two pairs of black eyes, Li Yang kept feeling like he even cheated the little kids of their money. He was simply wicked beyond redemption. Just as this fellow was uneasy and deliberating, not knowing what to say to appease the children. With a glance, he saw two noble young masters in luxurious brocade robes walking over with smiles on their faces. Looking at that incomparably noble appearance, one could tell that they were definitely not ordinary people. Li Yang hurriedly went forward and cupped his hands, asking with a smile, "Young masters, these two children are, they're our children." Hu Shichen glanced at the children with a faint smile. Baby Mo and Lord Guangguang hurriedly lowered their little heads and rubbed the corners of their little clothes. Li Yang smiled as if relieved of a heavy burden and hurriedly cupped his hands with a smile. "Then that's good. Young masters, please bring the children home. The holy region hasn't been very peaceful recently. There are often spirit beasts charging into the camp. It won't be good if they get hurt anywhere. Besides, looking at the clothes of the two young masters, I think they should be disciples of the Holy Academy's boy branch. The Holy Academy should still be in class right now. I don't know why they ran out. Hu Shichen bent down to pick up baby Mo and rubbed the little fellow's head. He played truant to come out. Baby Mo blinked and hurriedly shook his head. No, we didn't play truant. Lord Guangguang pounced and hung on Hu Shichen's leg, saying hurriedly, we didn't play truant. The other students also went back. Hu Shichen raised her eyebrows and patted baby Mo's little head in amusement. Whether you played truant or not, go home and explain to mother. Baby Mo and Lord Guangguang sighed in disappointment at the same time. Arbor's party arrived at the Holy Region 4 days ago. Their current temporary residence in the Holy Region was a small row of 2-story bamboo buildings built by Qiuqiu on the day they arrived. There weren't many rooms, 2 or 3 of them were enough for the time being. Moreover, their bamboo house was just a smokescreen to fool outsiders. When they really needed to replenish their sleep, they were not stupid. Naturally, they would run to the star field to rest. Speaking of the sacred region, there was no distinction between day and night all year round. The environment was also very humid and full of haze. This place was covered by a layer of white fog all year round. The fog was very thick, effectively blocking everyone's line of sight. Even a Mystique Venerable rank powerhouse would not be able to see clearly what was 3 feet away. Therefore, when baby Mo said that he needed to find a secluded place to relieve himself, it was actually nonsense. He couldn't see anything clearly when he was 3 feet away, let alone when he was several meters away. The space of the sacred region was empty and boundless. Compared to the crowded and bustling 3 continents, it was vast but sparsely populated. Generally, the practitioners of the sanctuary were used to finding a place rich in saint power to cultivate, and it was unlikely that they would gather together. In Jojo's place, it was rare to see a group of people living in a row of small bamboo houses and cultivating together. 4 days ago, when they arrived at the sacred region, they were surrounded by people. There was no other reason. It seemed that it had been too long since anyone had ascended to the sacred region. This time, they came with more than 30 people, which was simply shocking. If Lord Jojo knew what the people of the sacred region were thinking, he would definitely snort and laugh at them for making a fuss over nothing. What these people saw was just the tip of the iceberg. Chapter 55-49. Actually, there were more than 2,000 members of the Phoenix clan who stayed in the star domain to retire. This was not including the number of beasts. It was just that they did not come out often. Only Jojo and a few dozen people came out to walk the streets. At this moment, everyone was gathered in the main hall on the first floor. The main hall of the bamboo building was quite spacious and could accommodate a few dozen people, but it was still a little cramped. Everyone was drinking tea and eating melon seeds while watching the show. Ever since Lord Rotten Peach Blossom brought Bao Mo back, the atmosphere became very strange. The mother and son sat opposite the table and stared at each other for more than 5 minutes. Until Mo Lien slammed the table and scolded, "Why did you skip school?" Baby Mo widened his pair of round eyes. Before he could protest, a childish wail came from the side. Princess Wuxuang, who was holding the baby and watching the show, was shocked. She looked down and did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Why are you crying? Your eldest uncle didn't scold you." This was too funny. Really, the 3-year-old Fu Yun's face was red and he looked at Princess Wuxuang pitifully. He sobbed and said, "I heard that we have to go to school at the age of 5. I have more than a year before I'm going to be like Brother Tuanzi and have to go to school to suffer. I really feel the same way." Everyone burst out laughing and looked at him speechlessly. Lord Guangguang nodded in agreement and let out a long sigh. Little Yun, cherish the good times you have now. Third young Master Fu, why did you leave early today? Lady Chiao Chiao had a stoic expression on her face. She glanced at her husband, who was slamming the table, and said seriously, you can't learn from your father, understand? Mo Lien. He retracted his hand and looked at his expressionless wife and then at his equally expressionless son. He was speechless. Who was his son learning from? His wife always pushed the blame to him. How could he get out of it? Today, Teacher Zhang was teaching. Halfway through, there was a fatty, baby Mo glanced at his mother's expressionless face, and his voice softened. Fat classmates suddenly stood up and rushed forward to kick the teacher twice. The teacher was furious. He punished the fat student and left in a hurry. I thought that since it was still early, I would go for a stroll on the streets. Stoic Joe's expression was normal, but he was slightly puzzled. Why did he feel that this plot was a little familiar? His face did not reveal the slightest clue as he asked indifferently, what did you do? I saw him bullying other students, so I stuck 2 berserk talismans on his butt. Everyone couldn't help but twitch their lips. Little Fu Yun asked with a face full of admiration, Big brother, how is that fatty? He's miserable. Baby Mo turned his little head and said with bright eyes, he was hit on the hand by the teacher with a ferule. He cried until his snot bubbles came out. Mo Lien couldn't help but roll her eyes. Then guess what happened to you? Will you be more miserable than that student? Baby Mo's eyes were as round as saucers as he rolled off the stool and ran towards the stairs with his 2 short legs. Adoptive father, save me. He looked for adoptive father before he was beaten, but adoptive father was not looking for grandmaster. This was Baby Mo's experience in the past 5 years. With a light flick of his sleeve, Mo Lien swept it across the air, and darling Mo tumbled backwards like a small ball. Chapter 55-50. However, when her small body rolled halfway, she was intercepted by a floating figure, who quickly scooped her up and held her in his arms. Upon catching a whiff of a familiar scent, the little fellow's survival instincts were extremely strong, and he scrambled on all 4s, frantically shrinking into the newcomer's embrace. He called out childishly, adoptive father, adoptive father. Daddy wants to beat me. He even threatened me. He said he would make my ending very, very miserable. Everyone couldn't resist bursting into laughter. Mo Lien expressionlessly looked at her son who was complaining first. Her gaze swept over a certain person before she harumphed. Come here. Baby Mo shook his head like a rattledrum. Not going. Duan Yu glanced at him in amusement before carrying this little imp to Arbor's side and sitting down. Little furball, what earth-shattering thing did you do now? Did you make mommy unhappy? I didn't do anything. Baby Mo quickly defended himself. I also didn't anger mommy. Adoptive father, you have to uphold justice for little furball. This child's face was stoic, but he was more eloquent than anyone else. Mo Lien couldn't help but be amused and annoyed at the same time. When Stoic Chiao saw everyone looking at her, she coughed lightly and said expressionlessly, children take after their father and like to twist words and force logic since they were young. Everyone nodded in agreement with a knowing attitude. Mo Lien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was utterly speechless. At this time, an energetic woman's scolding came from outside the bamboo building, as if someone wanted to barge in. However, she was stopped by Ao Yi and Xiao Yi who were guarding outside. Arbor blinked and asked his son seriously, did you reach out to hit that fat classmate? Baby Mo shook his head and answered with certainty, I didn't even touch him with a single finger. Arbor nodded and stood up to open the bamboo building's door. A group of people then filed out. Currently, outside the bamboo building's courtyard, a family of 3 was charging in exasperatedly. Everyone looked over and saw 3 fat balls of different sizes moving about. Outside, there were several busybodies who were watching the show. Seeing several dozen people coming out of the bamboo building, the 2 big fat balls retreated a few steps. They pointed at Xiao Mu and company through the bamboo fence and bellowed, "You don't think that you can make people feel afraid just because you have the advantage in numbers." Arbor raised his eyebrows. The woman, whose arms were 4 times as thick as Lord Jojo's, raised her voice and asked angrily, "Son, was he the one who did it?" It's him. He had suddenly thrown out a purple talisman. Then I fell to the ground. That Baldy was especially bad. He roared and the other students all rushed over to hit me. Wah-wah, the fat ball-like woman suddenly slapped the bamboo fence and roared, "Did you hear that?" Stay Up Late silently took a step back to avoid the woman's saliva. The little furball was currently using its 2 paws to cover its eyes, and its little head was forcefully leaning against Duan Yu as it stubbornly insisted, "I just didn't hit him. I didn't even lay a finger on him." Duan Yu couldn't help but be amused. What exactly happened? It seemed that this little fellow only told the story of the first half and would even secretly hide the truth from them and hold back the second half. Guangguang. Sir Guangguang took small steps and hastily moved in front of everyone, his expression filled with righteous indignation. Stoic mother, he was the one who bullied us first. Stoic Qiao was speechless and looked down at him. He was the one who bullied Xiaohua first. We beat him up as an eye for an eye and upholding justice. Chapter 55-51. That's right. As the saying goes, evil cannot prevail over good. Grand Master said so. Although justice will be late, it will come one day. Baby Imo had a righteous expression as he nodded and said, "Fatso classmate, he has been abusing us for so long, it's time for someone to teach him a lesson." And I, and Guangguang, are coincidentally suitable candidates. Everyone, this little brat's words were dignified, but it could not hide his deceitful nature. Arbor looked at his son expressionlessly, then turned to look at the flustered and exasperated woman who was stomping her feet, and said indifferently, "How do you plan to settle this?" Fatso's family of 3 glared at Arbor with the same angry expression. "Do you even need to say it? Of course, you have to apologize to my son." The woman said indignantly, "My son was beaten up to this state, you have to pay all the medical fees." "How much?" The woman's expression flickered slightly, and she pointed at the row of bamboo houses behind Arbor. "My son was beaten to a pulp by your son, the medical fees are expensive, you have to use the row of houses behind as collateral for the medical fees." The group of people behind Arbor looked at each other silently, and they all thought to themselves, this Fatso's family of 3 is really asking for an exorbitant price. They actually came for their house. Speaking of this row of 2-story bamboo houses, they had really been in the limelight in the Holy Region recently. 4 days ago, when their group of more than 30 people openly entered the Holy Region, it immediately caused a commotion. The first thing they did on the afternoon of the first day they arrived was to build the houses. When Jojo expressionlessly built the bamboo houses, he attracted many people to come and watch. Many kind-hearted people came forward to strike up a conversation with them. At that time, they all tried to persuade her, "Young madam, don't be stupid. The Holy Region is filled with holy power. The bamboo houses you built using one of the 5 spirits, the wood spirit, will be washed away by the holy power in less than 10 minutes. Their Jojo continued to build the houses calmly without any distractions, and he did not even glance at the others. In the end, these people became anxious and continued to persuade her one after another. Madam, don't be so unconvinced. That's right. Let me tell you, you've spent so much with spiritual energy to build this bamboo building. When the time comes, it will still collapse. Thus, Jojo-sama built the two-story bamboo building expressionlessly amidst the murmurs of the crowd. A sensation. Naturally, it was sensational. First of all, everyone was suspicious of this young madam's inner world. Who the hell would put a bunch of bamboo in their inner world instead of other precious items? Who could inject wood spirit energy into bamboo in one go, and then build a two-story bamboo building? How could the wood spirit energy not be exhausted after consuming so much? Everyone was very curious about their Charles. For the past 4 days, there were many busybodies who came here every day to see if the bamboo building would collapse. The result was obvious. The bamboo building didn't collapse, and there wasn't even the slightest sign of cracking. How could a bamboo house made of holy wood be destroyed by the holy power in the sanctuary? Stop joking, okay? The first, luxurious villa in the holy region was born just like that. For the past few days, many people often looked at them strangely, and it wasn't as if they weren't being watched in the dark. It was just that more than 30 of them had ascended here, and they didn't seem to be afraid of trouble. Therefore, they turned a blind eye to those who were sneakily snooping around. Chapter 55-52. They didn't expect that after 4 days, the first to run to their bamboo building to cause a ruckus was actually Darling Mo's family. Looking at the malicious glint in that fat ball-like couple's eyes, it was clear that they were happily plotting something. Arbor didn't say anything, but that fat ball-like man spoke up again. One was playing the good cop, while the other was playing the bad cop. Both of them were up to no good. The woman demanded an exorbitant price and demanded their entire house. The man answered with a fake smile, "My wife is insensible. Please forgive her. Actually, your bamboo building has 2 floors, so it's quite spacious. Our family of 3 can take a bit of a loss. We only need 2 of the rooms." Princess Wushuang rolled her eyes and said while hugging the baby, "Our 2-floor building only has a dozen or so rooms, so it's very cramped for over 30 people. Apologies, there's no room for you." The fat ball-like woman was enraged. "This is compensation. Get your facts straight. We didn't come here to ask for your opinion. This is the compensation for the consultation fee that you must pay us." Compensation. She liked these 2 words. Arbor's eyes brightened when he heard this. Everyone couldn't help but laugh inwardly when they saw the little stoic's expression. Mo Lien was standing close to Duanyu, so when he saw Jojo's expression, he reflexively glanced at darling Mo. This child's eyes also brightened. It was as if he was carved from the same mold as his mother. Other than his pair of phoenix eyes resembling the fiendish Mo Lien, he resembled his mother in every other aspect. However, his mother was stubborn and never admitted it. "Jojo's Lien, come here quickly." Arbor turned around and beckoned him over. Someone came to snatch Jojo's house, so they had to compensate. Mo Lien twitched his mouth and floated to his wife's side. He asked seriously, "Wife, what do you need hubby's help with?" Arbor quickly nodded. "Your son instigated his classmates to beat people up, and after beating the young one, the old one came. Since their parents came knocking, then you can only step forward as their father and beat them up to vent their anger. Mo Lien, wife, you're so good to me." When his son was struck by lightning, his father blocked it. When his son hit someone, his father stepped forward and was beaten up by the other party's parents. Mo Lien glared at Jojo with a pair of misty, almond-shaped eyes. She had an accusatory expression on her face. "Wife, you've changed. It's nothing. Jojo looked away guiltily and patted the back of his hand. I'll ask them for compensation after the fight. It seemed like it had been a long time since someone had sent him compensation. When he suddenly mentioned the word compensation, his heart itched. Mo Lien took 2 steps forward and stood expressionlessly in front of the fat ball couple. Go ahead. The couple was baffled. They looked at each other and couldn't understand what was going on. Mo Lien was instantly enraged. A beam of black flames shot out with a whoosh and swept towards the fat man. You don't want to fight. If you don't want to fight, I'll do it. Everyone looked at each other, dumbfounded. He saw that Mo Lien's movements were extremely fast. He extended his leg and kicked the fat man away. The fat ball woman's heart-wrenching scream came from beside them. Glancing over, they saw that ball-shaped woman quickly dashing out with her son. It looked like she was rushing forward to help her husband out of this predicament. Arbor glanced at them and shook his head with a sigh. He muttered to himself, hubby's temper is getting worse. So fiery. He was like a small firecracker that ignited at the slightest spark. He walked to Duan Yu's side and reached out to take his son. He said earnestly, don't learn from your father. Duan Yu. Chapter 55-53. Mother, the fat classmate is really a bully. When we were studying, he used the spirit snake to scare Xiaohua and the rest. Arbor looked down at his son. Mother believes you. But if you encounter this kind of situation in the future, you can use a better method to resolve it. Okay. Then I'll think about it in the future. Baby Mo looked at his mother with sparkling eyes. Mother, why did that fat classmate's parents come to snatch our house? Because they are shameless. Arbor said expressionlessly, Mother painstakingly built this house. They reaped without sowing and only wanted to extort and extort. For this kind of person, we should make them bleed appropriately and spit out a bit of compensation. Because they wasted our time on these senseless matters, they have to compensate us whether it is the cost of our time or the mental damage. Princess Wushuang's mouth twitched, sister-in-law's words seemed to make a lot of sense. Baby Mo's eyes were sparkling as he nodded repeatedly. Then why don't they build their own house? I strolled around the holy region today and felt that the people there are all very strange. Duan Yu and the rest couldn't resist laughing when Baby Mo recounted what he saw and heard today. Especially when he talked about the group of shills around the pancake seller grandpa, Baby Mo was filled with righteous indignation, which amused everyone to death. Arbor expressionlessly looked down at his son. Little furball, you can't report the old grandpa. Why? Didn't Mother say that there is no difference between old and young bad people? The old grandpa isn't a swindler, and those around him aren't shills. Arbor thought about it and felt that it was a bit troublesome to explain, so he reflexively glanced at Duan Yu beside him and said solemnly, you say it. Duan Yu understood this girl too well. She had always been keen on tossing those time-wasting explanations to other people. He couldn't help but chuckle inwardly as he carried the chubby Baby Mo back. Little furball, adoptive father will tell you about the prices in the holy region. The little furball nodded. Okay. A moment later, Baby Mo finally figured out the prices here, and his face was full of lamentation. I didn't expect. This holy region's resources are so barren. 1 pancake costs 10 spirit stones, and people are madly fighting over it. The life of the people of the sanctuary was too difficult. It's hard to imagine. When everyone heard his old and heavy tone, they couldn't help but want to laugh. Especially when Lord Guangguang chimed in, then it's fortunate that we didn't report the old grandpa to Dongfang Yuzhu. Otherwise, wouldn't the old grandpa be finished? Dongfang Yuzhu. It couldn't be the one they were thinking of, right? Duan Yu face-bombed. Do you know where to find Master Dongfang? We asked for directions with the portrait. Sir Guangguang took out a crumpled piece of paper from his sleeve. Venerable Peach Blossom picked it up and took a look. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. The drawing is pretty good. But little dumpling, can you tell me what the 3 words beside it are? Arrest warrant. Baby Mo said in all seriousness. Seeing that everyone wanted to laugh, he hurriedly pointed at his mother. I've seen Mother writing these 3 words on a stack of drawing paper. He was just following the pattern. Baby Mo had asked Daddy what a warrant for arrest meant, and Daddy had said that it meant to search for someone. Wasn't that the case? Stoic Chow expressionlessly turned around and faced everyone with the back of his head. Everyone couldn't hold back their laughter. Chapter 55-54. Little baby Mo turned to look at Duan Yu, who was close by, and asked in his childish voice, Adoptive father, why are they laughing at mommy? Duan Yu answered seriously, they're not laughing at your mommy, they're laughing at you. Baby Mo put on a distressed expression and quietly said, then let them laugh. Who told them to be my elders? Sir Jojo couldn't resist curling his lips with his back facing his son. Duan Yu poked the child's forehead with a chuckle. In any case, life in the holy domain is quite arduous. Little furball, you can't compare our daily lives in the divine province with here, okay? The prices here are on the high side, so you can't report those old grandpas and grandmas you see selling things on the streets in the future. Baby Mo nodded and clenched his small fists. I understand. Mommy said that I have to go everywhere to gain experience. Only by continuously gaining experience can I become stronger. Moreover, we can't rely on the star domain. We can only be truly strong if we continuously become stronger ourselves. Princess Wushuang couldn't resist rolling her eyes as she quietly muttered, everyone else needs to become stronger, so you can rest a bit. This 4 or 5-year-old brat's current cultivation realm had already surpassed 99% of the people in the divine province, okay? Half a year ago, that oddball mother and son pair reached the phenomenal success stage of level 15 of the god realm at the same time. These days, little Furball was still prattling on and on about how he was stuck at level 15 of the phenomenal success stage for a long time. His cultivation realm had never remained stagnant for so long. If it weren't for the fact that he was her nephew, she wished for nothing more than to throw her shoe at his head. While everyone was chatting and laughing, they saw Mo Lien striding into the small bamboo garden and gesturing to Ma Shichin, who was standing on the side. Come and move it. Everyone was speechless for a moment. It seemed like this fellow had swindled a lot of things out of that fat ball and wife couple. When everyone went out, they saw a pile of sparkling spirit stones on the ground. Venerable Peach Blossom raised his brows. What do you want? Move it inside and put it in the courtyard. Mo Lien stood on the side and directed them. Put it in a conspicuous place. Right, just put it on the table. Pile it all up. Everyone put up a sign in front of the bamboo table and wrote the word compensation on it. Arbor looked very satisfied. In the future, if anyone dared to come to her bamboo house and make trouble, they would have to pay first. Since he had nothing to do, he decided to see if he should build a JoJo restaurant in the sanctuary. Even if she couldn't be the island master, she could at least be the tower master. Little dumpling, you have to go to school tomorrow, okay? Mo Lien glared at her son sternly. If you play truant again, I'll give you a good spanking. Baby Mo flopped into Duan Yu's arms and wailed, adoptive father. Why are you being so fierce? Duan Yu glanced at him irritably. It's not like Xiao Tuanzi is a disobedient child. Baby Mo nodded repeatedly, indicating that he was very obedient. Fu Yun sobbed at the side. Princess Wushuang was dumbfounded. She lowered her head and looked at her son. Son, why are you crying? I already said that I'm not yelling at you. Mother, are you especially hoping that I can suddenly grow 2 years older right now so that eldest brother and I can go to the academy together so that we won't bother you? Princess Wushuang inwardly mused, you can tell even this. Mother, the way you looked at my eldest brother just now was especially envious. Little Fu Yun wiped his tears and sobbed. Don't deny it. Chapter 55. Princess Wushuang pursed her lips. I don't want to deny it, I do think so. As soon as he finished speaking, Fu Yun started crying in a world-shaking manner. Princess Wushuang felt melancholy. She turned to glare at Third Fu. Her son was a crybaby. How could she accept this? Third young Master Fu hurriedly reached out to carry his son over and did not know whether to laugh or cry. All right, don't cry. Go and play with your brother. Think of it this way. Big brother still has to go to the school tomorrow, but you don't have to go. Do you feel better thinking of it this way? Baby Mo glared at Third young Master Fu angrily. How dare they build their happiness on top of his pain? Stop crying. A man bleeds, not tears. Baby Mo knocked Fu Yun's head. If you cry again, I'll change your name to Yu Yu. Why? Because you keep crying. No, I can't have the surname Xia. My father's surname is Fu. Then I'll call you Fu Yu Yu. Fu Yun stopped crying obediently. He felt that the name Big Brother gave him was too ugly. He should just forget about it. Big Brother, is the school fun? I'm telling you, I can guarantee that you won't want to go there again after going there once. Baby Mo raised his chin proudly and strode into the bamboo building with his short legs. Why? Do you think it's like the school in China? There are classes, study rooms, clean windows and a group of friends. Isn't it? No. Baby Mo said angrily. They say it's a school, but it's just a sign by the road with the words Boy Branch of the Sacred Academy written on it. I sat on the ground with a dozen of my classmates. There was white fog all around us. We couldn't see the people 3 feet away from us. Then what should we do? What else can we do? Let's sit in a circle with the teacher in the middle and listen to his nagging. Teacher taught us how to draw today. Little brother, I'll draw you one later. Baby Mo's eyes suddenly lit up. He pulled Fu Yun's hand and entered the house. Big brother, can you draw a stick of candied haws for me? Don't you have candied haws in your inner world? Before they came to the Holy Land, the children were already prepared. They had happily collected a lot of snacks a few days in advance and put them all in their own inner worlds. Little Fu Yun was about to cry. Mother said I can't eat it. Mother said that we came to the sacred region to train, and the first thing we have to train is to starve. Your mother is just scaring you. We are children. The most important thing for children is to grow taller. How can we grow if we don't eat? You've been deceived by little ant again. Baby Mo analyzed the situation logically. As his number 1 fan, Lord Guangguang nodded furiously. That's right. Let's eat. Don't cry, Big Brother will treat you to meat. Baby Mo patted Fu Yun's head and pulled out a lunchbox from the star domain. Do you want some cloud flower cake? Fu Yun and Lord Guangguang nodded in unison. Not long after, Stay Up Late came to Arbor to report that the 3 children were happily eating in their room. Everyone didn't find it strange. They only stole glances at their Charles. Arbor said expressionlessly, "Oh, it's already time for dinner. Let's eat." Princess Wushuang's mouth twitched. "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."